The brilliance of the cyberpunk genre stems from just how astonishingly accurate science fiction writers collectively predicted our current society. Of course, people aren't fitting themselves with bionic arms and hacking into whatever they can see. We haven't all congregated into a collection of 10 dystopian hubs of technology. But the idea of capitalism being taken to its furthest extremes, of megacorporations owning everything, of being interconnected in a way that seemed like a distant pipe dream in the 70s and early 80s, it's actually kind of prophetic the way that sci-fi writers drafted some of the earliest ideas of what the world could become when taken to its technological limits, straying from the previous utopian landscapes that dotted much of sci-fi writing. Though perhaps not their intention, these novelists, directors, and designers effectively nailed much of the infrastructure pertaining to the cyber half of cyberpunk. As the years passed and the genre became more fleshed out, nearly every entertainment medium threw its hat into the ring, from television like Max Headroom.
What I want to know is, why are the only funny lines on this show the ones behind me?
To the genre-defining Blade Runner.
A new life awaits you in the off-world colonies. The chance to begin again in a golden land of opportunity.
To the powerfully influential manga-turned-anime Ghost in the Shell.
Aw, out of ammo?
Huh?
The genre marched ever onward, feeding into and inspiring more and more works of art, seeping into gaming at first via the Megami Tensei series, and immediately being followed by Mike Pondsmith's 1988 TTRPG simply called Cyberpunk. Originally set in the then-distant future of 2013, the tabletop game chose to follow in the footsteps of many of its predecessors, envisioning a world where history diverges from reality in 1989 onward. In this universe, Japan has merged economies with the EU. The US has declined and collapsed due to the rampant corruption instigated by the DEA, CIA, FBI, and NSC all seizing control of the government. The Soviet Union has survived, and the Middle East began a nuclear war that wiped it out entirely. With new editions of the game, the lore expanded, first to cover events up to 2020, and then to the 2030s with 2005's V3.0 edition of the game. Unfortunately, the changes to lore, art direction, and overall setting caused the V3.0 edition to fall flat in every way, eventually scrapped from the official canon by Mike Pondsmith. Regardless, Cyberpunk more than drew the eye of CDPR, who once again approached an idol of theirs in the hopes of working out a deal with him in 2012. Pondsmith was impressed by their in-depth knowledge of the universe that he had created, and worked out a deal with the developers that granted them the rights to his creation as long as the setting was in 2077 onward. And so Night City was brought to video games, an arduous process that spanned 8 years and was still released too early. It's hard to stress just how much work went into Cyberpunk 2077, even with public perception turning sour when the game initially released. Among the media that inspired the creation of the environments were the aforementioned Blade Runner and Ghost in the Shell, along with one of the godfathers of the genre, Akira, and hit video games Deus Ex and System Shock. The team drew inspiration from Wiesbaden-born Dieter Rams, whose Weniger aber besser philosophy influenced a broad array of 20th century industrial design. They also drew from Sid Mead, who conceptualized futuristic vehicles and technology in the worlds of Blade Runner, Aliens, Johnny Mnemonic, Elysium, and so on. They drew from Italian car designer Marcello Gandini for many of the game's sleek and stylish vehicles. They requested a $7 million grant from the Polish government in order to create a new engine for the game. Every district was designed from the ground up, attempting to build something realistic that still adhered to the tabletop game's expansive lore. Nudity was included in order to stick with the vision that the body is no longer sacred in this universe, but instead something to be modified, enhanced, and sacrificed for pleasure. Multiple big artists were contracted to write and perform songs that fit within the game's fictional universe. Advertising was spread out across branding on energy drinks, gaming consoles and chairs, Funko Pops, shoes, video cards, and so on, an endeavor that allegedly cost over $140 million. To say that Cyberpunk 2077 was an anticipated title is a gross understatement. The developers even received death threats over their last delay of the game, a testament to just how big the project became. You really haven't made it big until you've inspired the brain-dead fraction of the population to do something exceedingly stupid over your product. Eventually, Cyberpunk did release on December 10th, 2020 to, well, exceedingly mixed reception. To put it mildly, the game needed more time to iron out bugs, particularly on older consoles that were on their way out. I myself had next to zero issues with the game when I played it on release, though I was also on PC. Still, I decided to wait to see what CDPR would do before making a video about the game. And here we are over 5 years later looking at a labor of love that has had patch after patch funnel improvements into the game while getting it to the state that the devs always intended for it to be in. In this video, I'll be running through Cyberpunk 2077 and analyzing its story, its gameplay, and its quest design while pointing out what it does well and what it seems to miss on. I won't be playing the Phantom Liberty DLC mostly because it would likely add another month onto this video's release timeline, though I could see doing a standalone video on it if it were something that people were interested in. Before I begin, I want to announce that the cooking channel is back. That's right, a channel dedicated to recipes and making recipes, a concept rarely heard of, let alone executed, is back on the proverbial menu and you cannot stop it. This isn't just a promise, it is a threat. Please be alarmed. Oh, and also my wife has taken it over, so it's gonna be her voice and editing from now on. Have fun, bye. Building a character in Cyberpunk isn't your normal kind of sculpting and sliding endeavor, which kinda goes against the grain for most modern RPGs. Instead, every body part, every blemish, tattoo, eye spacing, all of it has been handcrafted to blend into this crazy society that you're stepping into. You're not maxing out sliders on stream to make the goofiest character possible. In a way, it's probably one of the most immersive character creators that I've messed with. I know that everyone kind of defaults to Junk 1 or Junk 2 when referring to Cyberpunk's character builder, but I feel like every option helped me to jump from the usual kind of character that I would build in any other game. Instead, I embraced what I felt like my guy would look like. I went with a corpo background story since I did Nomad the first time and kind of tailored my choices to suit what I feel like a hyper-opulent corporate type might look like. Yakuza-like tattoos, gold cyberware, clean skin, modified eyes, and of course purple hair because I might as well have some fun. Every character that you can make almost always looks like they're going to blend right in with Portland, Oregon, which really helps to establish a baseline for the kind of shit that you're about to witness. Moving on to your attribute points, you only have 5 very condensed options, which on one hand feels a bit strange after coming off of the tabletop game with its much more expansive and more traditional TTRPG options. On the other hand though, I feel like smushing everything down into 5 stat blocks helps mitigate hesitation when choosing stats. Like, say that I play a melee guy, and my main stats are going to be something like strength, fortitude, endurance, maybe agility. Of course I can work out how I want to allocate points and determine which are going to be more important at any given level up, but why worry splitting things up when I can just hammer my points into one category and maybe choose a backup category for my lesser interests? Yeah, I don't know. One part of me yearns for complexity that causes me to break out the pen and paper for some stat planning. The other part of me is so fed up with surface level attribute complexity that's only jammed into a AAA game to make it look deep. So I would say that this is a pretty good alternative. Body is your bruiser archetype, shotguns, blunt weapons, health, intimidation. Intelligence is your netrunner archetype, helping you to hack and use smart weapons more efficiently. You get the point. When you look at all of these categories, you instantly understand what you're going to build. Want a more stealth forward build? You're primarily dumping points into cool. Something more Ghost in the Shell? A good mix of int and technical ability that's accented by cool should suffice. But you know what I want? Big man energy. Tear door off hinges, beat humans with fists. It might surprise you to know that that's the kind of build that I went with the first time I played the game. I have no interest in diverting from that course beyond maybe dipping into sharp weapons. Guns are for cowards and net running hurts my brain. And so we begin, an agent for Arasaka and a higher up one at that. I really only have the Nomad intro to go off of for this entire comparison, but I can easily say that the corpo background is instantly more immersive and interesting to me. Your role is that of a low-life corporate thug masquerading as a noble intelligence network executive. Your official profile notes you as somebody who's erratic and hard to control but loyal to Arasaka and someone who can get the job done with flying colors. I expected to be one of the entry-level grunts who winds up fucking everything up, but having this kind of authority yields insight into what is and what will be one of the main villains of the game. With the Nomad story, you're plunged into the dusty outskirts of Night City, a journey that takes you from downright terrible conditions and into a whole new world of technology. That fish-out-of-water experience in and of itself is valuable and interesting. There really is nothing wrong with it. But knowing what I know about Arasaka and how evil it winds up being to the protagonists of the game, I can't help but to feel like this is the perfect background for a second playthrough. You start in the belly of the beast, absorbing information, walking in the shoes of the other side, and understanding how easy it is to become entrenched in their ranks. You sit at your computer and huff a can of stimulant before typing at the keys. You're approached by subordinates for your input on various ongoing tasks and issues. Your boss hands you a stack of paper money, an old-school pile of currency that's nearly impossible to track. Then he tells you to go take care of his boss to kill her in a way that will cause him to gain more respect in the company. Jackie comes into the picture immediately, your mercenary friend who becomes pivotal to the plot when things get rolling. It's clear that even despite V being an agent of Arasaka, Jackie has no qualms about rubbing shoulders with somebody from a different life path, the perfect profession and personality for any background that V could crawl out of. And honestly, as far as introductory sequences go, I do have to applaud the differences between the three options that you have. Nomad has you witnessing the city from the outskirts, a shining hub of brightly colored posh and grime fused together in a remarkable way. I assume that the Street Kid intro has you absorbing the worst elements of the city from the ground firsthand, looking up at the dizzying lights and hoping that you make it big. And the Corpo life path has you fully integrated with the upper crust, looking down on the city from its highest peaks while you live in the lap of luxury. This is precisely the kind of thing that I want from intro sequences. Yes, they're all going to meet up at the same point. In the end, they really don't matter all that much. But that's the point of a good introduction, something that I've always loved about the likes of Dragon Age Origins. You learn about the various aspects, cultures, and factions of the world that you're playing in before moving on to the main story, with each starting point yielding a different kind of insight into the area that you wind up in. It feels like this kind of nuance is missing from most AAA games nowadays, and your background has instead been relegated to a blurb of text that has the player filling in the blanks and attempting to make everything fit in their head rather than showing them what they were a part of before being dropped off. Likewise, this entire introduction is rather short, which is probably why I didn't wind up enjoying the Nomad as much as I thought I would. It's a tough situation to deal with, because if you're placing V in a temporary starting area and then giving him tasks to perform, he's going to naturally level up, gain money and items, all of that good stuff that he'll have to give up. So cutting things off early mitigates that while unfortunately making you naturally crave more. In this case, V goes to meet with Jackie in the hopes of gaining his aid with killing his boss's boss. Jackie outright refuses V, knowing that assassinating a director in Arasaka is only going to lead to an early demise. Before our guy can come up with a new plan, Arasaka thugs show up and promptly revoke V's status, having caught on to his assassination attempt. The sudden dismantling of V's inner systems caused him to experience an ungodly withdrawal, seeing as he had been hooked up with all sorts of technological hormone regulators and the like while working for the mega corporation. Jackie winds up chasing them out after threatening to turn this into a bar fight, to which they storm off. And this is where the path converges. Again, I wanted to participate in this assassination attempt. It was so goddamn interesting, and then you just ripped me onto the main railroad track. But this is a necessary evil, and I would much rather be pining for more corporate antics than sitting here bored out of my mind and wishing to speed things along. The intro kicks off with V slowly pulling himself away from the corpo mindset and lifestyle, backed by a track from Run the Jewels. This has always stuck out to me as a fantastic lead into the main game, though I have to admit that Run the Jewels is one of my favorite hip-hop groups, so that probably helps. Your initiation into V's current lifestyle involves him picking up a job to help out a client that's been kidnapped by scavengers in an attempt to harvest her organs and cyberware. It's an optional stealth mission that showcases not only Jackie and V's ability to get the job done, but the absolute monstrous behavior from some of the city's criminal element. It's worth noting that there's a censorship mode in this game, which is perfect for a YouTube video, but I just can't do it. It's not like I'm popping a rod when seeing some half-dead chick's exposed body, but it feels so much more raw when this is a part of life in Night City. It's as horrific and profane as the devs set out for it to be. It's not here for shock value as much as it is for immersion into this world, and I think that this is probably the perfect first mission to the game in that regard. Obviously, I still can't show this shit because it might scare the advertisers, but it won't stop me from playing the game how CDPR intended for it to be played. When the mission is done, Jackie drives V home, allowing you to absorb the element that you're now in from the street level. It's a fantastic drive that highlights the reality of police blockades and intervention, of how normal it is for criminals to pursue and shoot at mercs such as us. There are very few games that accomplish this kind of immersion right off the bat, and it performs miracles to pull the player into this reality. The leveling system is introduced after this, and holy shit is it different from when I played 5 years ago. From what I recall, it felt like most perks that I could choose were passive. Flat damage increases, health bonuses, all of that shit. And I had assumed that that was due to choosing the blunt damage build that I had going at the time. But apparently this was a pretty standard complaint across most builds upon release. Now things look much more, I guess, like a cluster of trees that branch off into specialized builds. New abilities, more direct specialization, you get the point. I'm a big fan of it even if it is overall pretty simple. And just mousing over the different skills that are available gives me a much clearer picture as to how I want to build different characters were I to start another file. The main story continues as you start to unravel the lifestyle that you've been living. Fixers are the ones who set up jobs for edge runners like V and Jackie. Gigs are the actual jobs, and the Night City Police Department is always accepting rewards for criminals dead or alive. So with that knowledge, we're set up with a legendary fixer named Dexter Deshawn, who has recently come out of retirement and is requesting our services on a gig. I'm gonna try not to do this too much, but I gotta talk about how fucking incredible this game is at immersion. Like, it feels like every scrap of environment, every interaction, every conversation was handcrafted to immerse the player within this world. Simply walking to meet with Jackie has V witnessing random conversations where people go on about the events in Night City. He gets flagged down by a couple of NPCs who treat him to some side quests, addressing V just from him walking by them. Every nook and cranny is packed with information, with flashing lights, intricately designed stalls, people who are living their lives. NPCs aren't here for you to approach, they're here in spite of your existence. Conversations involve these little touches that you never know that you would miss until you see them. Be it Jackie eating while V talks, or following along at a restricted pace automatically when conversing, or the Ripper Doc sliding his stool around so that he can get to work, or conversations beginning before the player can walk up to an NPC and click on them, or the sound effects of sitting on leather, tapping on glass, placing down a cup. It's a work of art with detail so fine that it's truly impossible to criticize it. The Ripper Doc is the guy that you need to see if you want to get work done on your cyberware. Eyes, hands, nervous system, arms, legs, brain, everything that can be upgraded needs to be done through a Ripper Doc who knows what they're doing. And I love the approach here because it could have easily been one of these things where you go, "Oh hey Doc, swap in some new parts," and the game transitions to the screen and then fades to black before you wake up new and improved. And don't get me wrong, that's probably a good call for later upgrades. But this entire first sequence is so much more real. You sit in this dental chair, get your hand numbed, and put it into this device that starts chopping away at it. The doc cuts your vision to replace your eyes, turns it back on while your new eyeball is still out of your body, and then places it into your skull. He hands you an inhalant to puff on in order to mitigate adverse side effects and allow your body to accept the new tech that's coursing through it. I mean, it's fucking awesome. It really is something that could have easily been placed into a horror game, but it's so normalized that V doesn't even bat an eye while all of this is happening. This game got a lot of deserved flack for overpromising on many of its NPC behaviors and underdelivering when it came to a bug-free experience. But I can tell you right now that there is absolutely no denying that the devs made things right. Seeing a video game with this much love poured into it is a rare commodity in the AAA gaming space, and while I could go on and on about every minute detail as it pops up, I know that it would wind up taking up the entire video length. So I'm gonna try not to continue with this praise and focus more on the story at this point. It will be difficult to clear my mind of the amusement and immersion that I feel so that I can fully analyze the story without giving the game breaks, but I will try my best. I think the best way to tackle a game as complex as Cyberpunk would be to get through Act 1, really let all of the side questing opportunities work their way into the game, and then start covering all of that kind of stuff before finishing out with the main quest line. So let's start from the top here. Firstly, we've got our notable mega corporations. Arasaka and Militech are going to be the main ones that we have to deal with in various ways. Militech is like if we took all of the arms manufacturers in the world, rolled them into one big conglomerate, and then let them buy their way into actual world-changing power. They manufacture small arms, heavy weapons, accessories, vehicles, and have an entire department dedicated to being contracted by police to clean up the streets of various cities, Night City included. While the initial founding of the company was by an Italian guy, the quick ties to the US government became so strong that Militech is now more or less the face of the US military. Arasaka, on the other hand, is obviously Japanese and has roots back to 1915 when it was established. This is our big bad of the game, a company that we got a little more insight into as part of our intro. A jack of all trades, Arasaka dips into the manufacturing of arms, vehicles, cyberware, and so on like Militech, but also deals in banking and corporate security, unafraid to use Yakuza-like tactics paired with massive amounts of lawyers to get their way. Both of these corporations have been around since the earliest iteration of the Cyberpunk TTRPG, playing a key role in the series with heaps of attached lore. And likewise, they both pop up immediately in the story, as Dexter Deshawn tasks you with stealing a very particular biochip from Arasaka. The issue is that we need a bit of Militech hardware in order to bust into the area that it's being held in. The hardware is a prototype that was stolen by a gang before being auctioned off to Dex. You can see just how inherently deep and interesting the quest structuring is right out of the gate. You have two major corporations, one that plays a much bigger role than the other. A random gang steals from the company that plays the lesser role, and now you're tasked with walking into that gang's hideout and getting them to relinquish it. The caveat is that although Dex has paid for the hardware, the nature of the gang has caused the leadership that he worked this deal out with to be replaced by another, more erratic psychopath. And then to top it all off, you can choose to meet with a higher up at Militech in order to squeeze any extra information out of her as she tries to track down this stolen hardware. Meeting with her has her trying to intimidate you into giving up which corporation that you're working for, since she believes that the hardware was stolen by Arasaka or the like. She has you pinned up against the car by her thugs who run a lie detector program on you. And unfortunately for her, she asks the wrong questions, leading her to believe that you're just some random third party who can potentially secure the hardware so that she doesn't lose her job. Desperation is the best motivator here, and she leaves you with a virus-infected credit chip, insisting that you use it to pay for the hardware again from the new gang leader. I know this isn't on the same level as something like Baldur's Gate 3 where you can approach a single situation 50 different ways and force different outcomes, but the amount of elements entwined into this single quest is downright impressive regardless. Imagine it this way. Let's say this quest was written as simply as possible. Dex approaches you and says, "Hey, check out this new hardware, we're gonna use it to steal from Arasaka," and then you just go to the building and start the meat of the quest. How much more boring is that? Instead, we have the main corporation, we have the gang of thugs, we have the shift in leadership, we have the woman who's trying to keep her job, we have the credit chip that we can choose to clean the virus off of and keep or use to process the new transaction. And you can ignore quite a few of these options if you want, or try to play through as many as possible. It's something that CDPR excels at, creating a quest with one or two outcomes and making it feel like you played through it exactly the way that you wanted to. The meeting winds up with a gunfight, and you can choose to kill or spare the old boss who's tied up in the back room. Then you head on out, discover that the Militech woman has already been replaced for her incompetence, and then carry on to the next objective. It's just a wonderful start to this game, compounding the already fantastic introduction. Your next goal is meeting with the client who arranged this entire gig, Evelyn. You chat her up, she explains that the son of the head of Arasaka has stolen this biochip and is planning to sell it off in order to leverage power for himself and hopefully oust his father who's been ruling the company for far beyond a normal human lifespan. With that bit of info, we know for sure that this isn't going to be a mission where we're assaulting some ultra-secure Arasaka facility, instead attempting to get to the chip inside the son's hotel room downtown. It's here that you're directed to experience a brain dance, one of Cyberpunk's most intriguing set pieces throughout the series. A brain dance is a hunk of neural technology that was initially developed to perform psychological treatments. This extended to the likes of criminal reconditioning before falling into the laps of society at large. Basically, a brain dance is used to allow somebody to experience firsthand what it's like to be in another person's shoes during an event. So someone could feel what it's like to be a victim of a crime, or witness a particular injustice or tragedy, or anything along those lines. And with those scenarios, the recipient of the brain dance experiences the exact emotions of the person who recorded the material that they're experiencing. Now, let's think about what that's naturally going to lead to given the base and primal instincts of a human being. Brain dances soon became entertainment, and not just your average moviegoer experience. We're talking sex, political propaganda, vlogging taken to the next level. A young adult could experience firsthand the sensation of slinging rope into an adult film star. Someone who's entrenched in one political movement can witness the other side and understand them firsthand via a form of brainwashing. An obsessed fan can see what it's like to live in the shoes of their favorite celebrity. It's an incredible concept that's exceedingly well done, as the brain dance that we're to experience is one where our client met with the Emperor's son in his hotel room, which will allow V to scope out the room for weaknesses, points of entry, and so on. The concept is taken even further though, as this one sci-fi idea is explored more deeply than a surface-level notion. Because if this were a real thing, how would it work? Well, you would take the recorded data from a person, along with the emotions that they felt, and then edit it down. That's an entire job that somebody has to perform. Choosing the right moments to elevate a particular emotion, cutting out distractions or inconvenient moments. And then when you've edited the entire product down to the perfect stint of footage, it's ready to go to market. This is the job description of Judy Alvarez, who we meet down in the basement of this bar. Except because we're gathering intel from this brain dance, we don't need the footage to be edited at all, allowing V to experience something exceedingly rare within this world, a raw brain dance that allows for free roaming within the memory. I can't stress just how cool this entire concept is and how far the writers took it. It's one thing to go, alright, so what would be more advanced than VR? And then coming up with an idea that they implement into a random mission with no further explanation beyond some blurb of optional text. It's a whole other thing to define every facet of the idea and integrate it in a seamless way that feels like a natural progression of society at large. It's one of those things that make me go, shit, I don't think I could have come up with all this. Which is a sensation that I tend to experience a lot in CDPR games. The actual brain dance editing mode allows for you to view things outside of the eyes of the person recording, so long as they're still within range. You can scan for visual, sound, and heat signatures and then focus on those aspects of the recording for more information. So after a brief tutorial where you experience a guy holding up a store and then getting shot in the head, you jump over to Evelyn's recording as she meets with Yorinobu Arasaka, the son of the Empire. While she's seemingly just there for a booty call, the intel that she picks up does eventually yield the type of security that the hotel room has, along with the refrigerated safe that the biochip is stored in. It's a pivotal part of any good heist setup, one that gets the player excited for a great quest. The finale of Act 1 kicks off at a legendary morgue turned into a bar called the Afterlife. Jackie is positively pumped to be there, the place where legends of old hung out, plotted, and got pissed drunk. It's funny because for as tough and professional as Jackie tries to come off as, that facade immediately drops off the face of the earth when he starts gushing about old legends like Morgan Blackhand, Rogue, and Johnny Silverhand, all names of people who played a big role in the original TTRPGs. After walking through the specifics, the game gives you one more check to see if you want to do anything else beforehand and then sends you on your way to heist it up. On one hand, I do feel like every step of the main quest has been a smooth ride, one that feeds into the next part with no continuity issues. I do like that about it. But on the other hand, with the way that I've approached things, it's never felt like I was some mercenary toughing it out on the streets, living paycheck to paycheck while working my way up the ladder, you know? Like, the introductory quest with the client who was kidnapped was great, but it feels like the game could have used a couple more like that. And I suppose you could argue that that's what the side questing is for. But the game itself really drives you forward to get through all of this Act 1 stuff. There's never a moment where the game goes, alright, take the rest of the night off and I'll contact you in the morning, or anything like that. It just jumps right into the next part. Save the client, go home, meet with Jackie, then Dex, retrieve the tech from the gang, meet with the client, assemble at the club, and start the heist. Like I said, it's a smooth experience. But there's never a point where I feel like I should get off of this ride and go see the sideshow. Besides maybe that first night when I woke up in my apartment, I guess. I'll bring up this minor pacing issue in a few when we get to the conclusion of this thing, but for now, keep this in mind. After dressing up in a suit and gaining some false identities to use for this endeavor, our ride to the hotel where Yorinobu is staying pulls up to greet us.
This combat mode even legal?
Of course it is. The Second Amendment says so. While on board, you are entirely within your rights to bear and use me.
This is the Delamain, an AI car that will wind up being a very fun part of the game later on. For now, it simply drops us off after telling us that our premium package guarantees that the car will take care of our remains should we die on this journey. Love that for us. The more pertinent part of this ride stems from Jackie's sheer unbridled excitement throughout it. V seems less impressed, but Jackie is over the moon about finally making it to the upper crust of the Edge Runner world.
Dex managed to buy you off that cheap? With a suit? A limo? No, Jack. Kinda feels like you're losing that steel grip of yours.
Huh. Seems to me like it's you who's got some kind of problem. Let me explain something to you, V. My whole life I've spent in this shit around us. And I ain't going back.
That said, Jackie doesn't handle his fake role as an established arms dealer too well, consistently shouting out the alias that V is using like it's some kind of joke name and pretending that this opulent hotel is a shithole compared to the one in Zurich. V, on the other hand, well, his corpo background comes in clutch amazingly for this exact location.
I'll go ahead and notify Taki-san of your arrival.
Shit, no good. Not part of the plan. Talk her up, V. Stall.
Have I asked you to do that?
No. I just thought that since...
Who asked you to think?
Excuse me?
I know damn well it wasn't me. Who was it? A word of advice, if I may. Do only what you're told to do.
I know it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but this is the exact kind of dialogue that I want from choosing a particular background. The plan goes off without a hitch, until it doesn't. I mean, after all, how exciting is a heist movie if nothing goes wrong? In this case, we pilot the little Militech robot through a bunch of vents and eventually get to the security area where one guy is jacked in and monitoring the systems at all hours. We take him out, head up to Yorinobu's room, and bust the safe open. And that's when the Emperor of Arasaka shows up to confront his son. This scene is tense for so many reasons that it's hard to fully quantify with words. You're treated to a spectacle as Yorinobu stares down his father, who dismisses the security while you're crammed behind this panel of technical glass. Now mind you, the bigger half of the security that Arasaka dismisses is Adam Smasher, Yorinobu's personal guard and one of the biggest legends of Night City going back to the original tabletop game yet again. Dude is a fucking menace, a man who's 98% machine and exudes danger like no other. With the security gone, the father and son bicker until the climax of the argument causes Yorinobu to kill his father, ending his 150-year reign on this planet. After blaming the death on an assassin, the hotel is locked down, causing an escape sequence to kick in. Your handler, who's been working behind the scenes to get you through this whole ordeal, gets made, and you're soon shot down through a glass ceiling and further into the hotel. Jackie's bleeding like crazy at this point, and the case containing the biochip is damaged, meaning that one of these two need to slot it in order to preserve it. Jackie takes the lead on that before you begin to work your way down and out of the hotel. This is set up to be a very strained stealth section, which usually isn't my thing, but I had a lot more fun with it than I thought I would. Of course, I blew it right at the end, but the combat that kicks in along with the music, I mean, my god, what a fucking awesome rush. Like, yeah, stealth was fun, but kicking everything on and gunning my way out was always going to be the winner for me. The Delamain rolls up and we make our escape with the help of this crazy high-powered vehicle. Of course, Jackie is at his limit by this point and winds up perishing before we make it to the safe house after handing the biochip off to V.
It's gonna be alright, huh? You'll see Misty, your mom, everyone you love. Jackie, don't close your eyes.
Misty, oh, she knew. She always knew.
This was kind of what I was getting at with the pacing issue. I mean, for all intents and purposes, Jackie has been our main contact and secondary character throughout this entire ordeal. He's the one who more or less helped us to where we are now, and he's a good character for that purpose. That said, we've also known him for about 3 hours of gameplay at this stage. It's not that his death doesn't impact me in any sort of way, but it could have been so much better had he survived for a good 5 to 10 hours of gameplay. More interactions, more dialogue, more scenes where you get to know and love him. And you could argue that my lack of side questing may have led to this sort of thing, but, well, first of all, I don't believe he's involved in any major side quests, truth be told. And secondly, the main quest was so aggressive in how it flowed together that it felt wrong to break from it. All that said, I don't think Jackie's death here was a total miss, because I do remember not expecting it the first time I played the game, which is kinda crazy given how many flags went up indicating that it was coming. It may have been a case of me enjoying the ride and not thinking too hard, but I also don't know if I ever noted him as somebody who was important enough for me to truly care whether he died at the moment that he did. I think if you gave a studio this exact time span within the average playthrough to kill off a character, there was no better way to implement it than the writers did, and I have to give them credit for that. Because the entire experience is an emotional one, and it still had me feeling bad for V even when I knew it was coming. When combined with the fact that I had the benefit of hindsight this time, the subtle and not so subtle hints were actually rather poetic more often than not. Firstly, you have Jackie asking about how the afterlife names their drinks, which has the bartender explaining that they're named after legends who have died. Secondly, you have Jackie claiming that he doesn't ever want to go back to the regular grunt work that comes with low-end edge running. Thirdly, he talks to his mom on the phone before all of this and explains that it's hard to lie to her about him not being in danger or close to death. And finally, his girlfriend does some Reiki adjacent thing with him at the start of the game and insists that he stay away from the color red, which is Arasaka's main color. Looking back at it, it's all written plain as day, but it isn't always the most obvious set of prophecy, making this a really well done death given the circumstances, a tragic death of an overall good deuteragonist. Walking into the safe house has V face to face with an exasperated Dex, who's trying to piece together what exactly happened. For all he knows, these two murked the Emperor of Arasaka and then fled with the damaged chip. V doesn't really have the faculties to tell him what exactly happened, and Dex calms down before telling V to go wash his face in the bathroom. This walk to the bathroom is a tense, white-knuckled saunter that has you wondering if the guy that we got along with so well before this is going to stab us in the back for causing this much of a headache, or if he's going to work with us to sort this whole mess out.
Can't risk it, V. Remember our first convo?
Dex!
Seems I've chosen the quiet life after all. No blaze of glory for me.
Honestly, I would say that the conclusion of an extended introduction to this game can't get much better than this. But then you wake up as Keanu Reeves, which... Okay, let's get this one out of the way now. Keanu is not a voice actor. He sounds exactly the way he does in every single movie he's ever been in, barring Bill and Ted.
You're wasting your lives following us around like dogs.
My guy may be one of the worst fucking actors to exist, but I absolutely love him in pretty much every movie that I've ever seen him in. I cannot explain this in a coherent way. Like, I really can't. It is one of the biggest enigmas to me because pretty much everything that I've seen him in, from The Matrix to all of the John Wick movies to Speed to any other movie where he's playing a man named John, I've enjoyed them and even loved the films despite my brain screaming at me that he's just playing Keanu Reeves again. The first time that I played Cyberpunk, I spent half of it going, wow, here comes Keanu again, and not being able to understand and identify him as Johnny Silverhand. Someone please explain to me why I feel this way but bear no ill feelings towards him as an actor, because I honestly do not understand. This is the entire reason that I made this video. Thank you for your time. No, but seriously, this interlude is fucking spectacular, like, just amazing. If it's not clear by now, the biochip that V slotted into his skull contains an engram of Johnny Silverhand, a 1-to-1 digital copy of the rocker's memories and personality circa 2023. Man, when I played this game in 2020, I thought, wow, only 3 years from now, huh? Now I think, fuck, I'm old. This entire memory sequence shows Silverhand putting on his last concert before hopping onto a helicopter and assaulting Arasaka HQ in Night City directly, a show of force that was meant to end the company or at least cripple it from continuing to operate as it had been. The music is sublime, the HUD change is perfect, and the absolute hand cannon that Johnny wields is, my god.
Get ready! Spend the whole fucking
He's really going.
Yes, damn it! Fucking own it! Where are my
I mean, come the fuck on, how do you not love this? You coolly Johnny Keanu your way through the building, set off a giant bomb, and then attempt to make your escape before none other than Adam Smasher stops you in your tracks. Of course, that's not enough for Arasaka, who snatches the dying Silverhand and has him patched up enough to interrogate him. Johnny won't give up any answers, so as a combined punishment and a way to get those answers, Old Man Arasaka has Johnny's brain scanned and transferred to the biochip, effectively ripping out his soul and leaving his body as a husk. This entire sequence absolutely oozes charisma, coolness, and is about as close to perfection as I think a game can get. There have been very few moments when playing a game where I've felt this way, and usually this feeling is something that happens towards the end of a game, not the start. Of course, it's not over yet. V wakes up in a landfill still alive due to the low caliber round not fully shooting through his brain. The biochip has already kicked in, a 2023 prototype that was meant to begin the process of patching up deadly wounds and get to work overwriting the old memories of the host with a new personality. The now deceased Emperor of Arasaka's right-hand man seems to be the catalyst for V's rescue from this pit as he shoots Dex in the head with a high enough caliber round to guarantee death and then carts V away. As we make our escape, elite Arasaka assassins pursue the two, hinting at Takemura's potential betrayal. He manages to get V to the Ripper Doc Vic from the start of the game, who saves his life while discovering our protagonist's inevitable fate when he realizes what this biochip does.
The biochip. It's basically a bomb. Fuse lit already. You don't have much time left. Much life. A few weeks tops. Silverhand's construct is overriding your consciousness, gradually taking over your body until one day you'll just be gone.
The news is as devastating as you might expect, and as V is wheeled back to his apartment by Jackie's girlfriend, she presents him with two sets of pills, one that blocks out the effects of Johnny taking over his mind and the other that speeds it up.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill.
Of course, Johnny's not willing to let V block him out, and it becomes clear fast that the ghost of Silverhand is a vengeful and malicious spirit that fully intends to overwrite V's mind as fast as he possibly can. This is what we're left with, the beginning of Act 2 gently nudging you towards meeting with Takemura at a diner to hear his side of the story. But I think this is the perfect time to begin stretching my legs into the side questing that Cyberpunk has to offer. Don't get me wrong, the main quest is fascinating, but something about this hard reset while being told that V has weeks to live as himself, I don't know, it just feels right to start popping off side quests for analysis. Side quests in Cyberpunk 2077 tend to fall into one of two categories, thinking quests and doing quests. Thinkers are usually small, dialogue-focused endeavors that reveal more about the world, the characters around you, and how you want to play as V. They don't usually have a lot of combat or general objectives to run through. Meanwhile, the doing quests are focused first and foremost on gameplay, action, and accomplishing something through fighting/driving. At first, the doers were the ones that I really had fun with and enjoyed the most on a surface level, but the thinkers were the ones that I found resonating with me more afterwards. And of course, there are various levels to these. Some are more funny and quick, not meant for anything too deep other than a way to kill time. Others are a little more involved, but still not quite spectacular by any means. And then there are some all-around solid quests that keep you entertained and focused throughout them. The easiest and simplest gigs are your cyber psychos and NCPD jobs. The former tends to have you following the trail of somebody who overloaded themselves on drugs, tech, or a combination of the two and then knocking them out and turning them in. They do have a mild story attached to them, but nothing incredible or groundbreaking. On one hand, it's nice to have a semblance of intrigue when hunting them down, but on the other, it's nothing that I really feel compelled to talk about. Just a good, solid bonus objective. NCPD jobs are even simpler, usually involving armed robberies taking place and you springing into action to stop them. Again, there's nothing wrong with them, but I felt even less compelled to take them on unless I happened to wander by them. In every area of the map, you have a designated fixer that sets you up with gigs. And this was something that I actually completely overlooked until the late game, but I was surprised by the amount of effort put into these quests. They're all straightforward with next to zero twists, but they have their own set of dialogue and objectives, which I found surprising. I mean, a lot of games would take the easy way out and make these sort of a radiant quest ordeal and wind up with the objective being one of 3 or 4 repeating tasks. But the first one that I actually decided to do wound up with me walking into a motel, chatting up the receptionist, grabbing a room so that I could access the rest of the motel easily, discovering the body of a guy who was previously assigned to this gig, finding out where a drug lab is set up, stealing a canister of ingredients, and hoofing it out to a drop point. Along the way, you talk with various people, chat with Johnny, and so on. And it feels like an actual named side quest and not just one of, like, 80 gigs across Night City. It's honestly impressive, and while I won't be talking about or doing all of them, it's easily a good 12 to 15 more hours of content stuffed into this game if you so choose. The real meat comes from the actual named side quests, though honestly, individually most of them aren't that great and don't stand on their own. I'll circle back to this in a few. The first one I did involved a monk who got taken hostage by the Maelstrom gang, which is the same gang that I stole the Militech robots from. The setup is good enough and involves the monk having been forcibly altered by the gang for fun. His brother was undergoing that same process when I stumbled upon him, and he insists that I should spare the entire group if I can while rescuing his brother. If I don't, the brother that I rescue admonishes my actions, stating that his life isn't worth more than another's. But even when I do spare everybody, he simply remarks that I'm cool as heck for saving him without bloodshed. I was kind of anticipating a quest where the outcome wound up with the brother actually loving his new tech, Night City breaking his pious beliefs. But this one was decidedly bland with the way that it shook out. And this sort of thing continues through most of the side quests that I hit. A guy gets a dick implant that winds up malfunctioning and you have to drive him to a Ripper dock. The entire mission is supposed to be a funny moment, but I mean, the humor comes from the guy just screaming. There's another where the police are beating up a corpo businessman and you can choose to intervene. He just thanks you for his rescue and you move on. Another one has you meeting a monk who offers you a brain dance where you kind of just meditate and then he leaves halfway through it. Oh, and also there's a talking gun that imitates old Microsoft Clippy.
Still got all your functions?
Running system diagnostics. Testing will take approximately 47 seconds. Bum, bum, be-dum, bum, bum.
What are you doing?
I'm making the wait more pleasant with a soothing melody.
I don't know. Like, on one hand, I can view all of these as ways of fleshing out the world. The flaming dick guy showcases the consumerism that's so out of control that even after having his rod fried, he's looking to get a new turbo model that's rated better. The police beating up the corpo showcases the corruption in the force that lets them think that they can do whatever they want.
See this badge? That means I can do whatever the fuck I want.
A little on the nose, but fine. The monk meditation opens up the possibility of brain dances having a more medicinal and wholesome use. But like, none of these have much substance beyond you trying to fill in those blanks. Dick guy doesn't try to use his apparently dire situation to trick you into some back room where a gang tries to shake you down. The police aren't beating up somebody who honestly deserved it in a way where you go, ah fuck, I just killed these guys even though they were, I don't know, beating up a sexual predator or whatever. The meditation monk doesn't steal your money while you're in the brain dance, turning out to be a petty thief who uses people's willingness to heal themselves to his advantage. I don't know, there are a lot of these that are fine but not great. I wouldn't call them a waste of time, but I also wouldn't call them a good use of time, you know? This trend continues to a quest with a shooting contest where a gang is celebrating the induction of a new leader, another where a vendor is getting shaken down by some local thugs due to his sister taking a corpo job, and another one where a group of people are gathered around a busted roller coaster and want you to fix it. And this last one was the one where everything kind of clicked for me. All of the quests that I mentioned before this have this sort of individually weak but altogether strong facet to them. To put it plainly, there aren't a lot of Tower of Rats quests in this game, where you feel like you're missing out if you don't take on specific side quests. But the more that I found myself picking up stupid talking guns, meditating with random monks, fixing roller coasters, and so on, the more that I realized how good these seemingly unimportant journeys are at making you feel more connected to Night City. The vendor quest has you gaining insight into how the average street urchin feels about corporations, hating them and doing anything to hurt them. Meanwhile, the brother of the girl who took the job pridefully boasts about her being the highest paid family member, viewing the hatred of corporations as immature and something to get over. The quest where the officers are beating up the corpo only yields a true answer if you have the street kid background, in which the officers claim that the guy is in fact a sexual deviant who showed a spiked brain dance to a girl and put her into a coma so that he could have his way with her. You'll never get this dialogue without that background, and it takes this quest from random commentary about the state of the NCPD to commentary about Night City's justice system and how the guy would basically get away with his crimes because of his high-up status as a manager for whatever corp he's working for. And that change in perspective, while not earth-shattering, does affect the player's thinking and insight into Night City's caste-like social system. The Zen Master Monk quest is a thinker quest that actually leads to 3 more encounters where you can choose to pay the monk or take his brain dance meditations for free. You can question him, you can claim that what he's peddling is bullshit, you can buy into it. Each time you focus on an element and relax, and each time he's gone when you open your eyes. He never does steal from you or take your body somewhere when you're in the brain dance or anything malicious. He's an unknown quantity, one that's so different from the usual suspect in this city that he stands out as suspicious on his own. Did he steal your personal data? Was he really a traveling monk? He uses cybernetics, which the previous monks claimed to be a blight on the soul. Was he somebody who was just acting like a monk for fun, an artist of sorts who decided to see if he could pull this off for his own personal satisfaction? Was he even real? He seems to hint at knowing about Johnny being within you, but Johnny has no clue who you've been talking to and meditating with, somehow not seeing what V has been seeing. And you'll never know who or what he was. He disappears as fast as he appeared in your life and you never hear from him again. The shooting contest seems like some random fun sideshow doer quest where you try to outperform some gunslinger and win a weapon. And on the surface, that's all there really is to it. But it brings up some themes that I hadn't even begun to really reflect on until now, namely the gangs. There are around 10 or so major gangs that have various sectors of Night City locked down. Before this quest, I really only knew about the Maelstrom gang and their affinity for augmenting their bodies with as much technology as possible. But who is this 6th Street gang? What are they about? Well, they believe in America first and foremost. They despise other gangs and want justice in the city. This makes the NCPD tolerate them much more than they do with a lot of the other criminal elements. The whole outfit came together after some war veterans got fed up with the NCPD's incompetence and decided to take things into their own hands. This info dump was fascinating enough for me to start researching the other gangs, catching myself up on the likes of the Tiger Claws, the Mocs, the Voodoo Boys, the Animals, and so on. Like I said, the roller coaster quest was the one that really got me to start thinking about how all of these stories weave together and feed into each other. Because again, on the surface, you fix a roller coaster and ride it. That's it. You have this group of younger adults just hanging out and drinking, trying to get this old coaster working. They might just be jobless, but I got a summer vacation vibe from them as they talk about going to the beach and getting the big carnival wheel working next. And it got me to thinking about what it would be like to grow up in this borderline hostile environment. What kind of entertainment you might seek out in a land that seems to be built on non-stop entertainment. What do you do all day when you get together with your friends, when your funds are limited, when you're out of school? And when you get on the roller coaster after fixing it, it's just you and Johnny, screaming your heads off at every dip and loop. It's probably the first instance that humanized Johnny Silverhand for me. Took him away from this edgy, too cool to care guy that tries to always be as abrasive as possible. And most importantly, it made me realize just how deeply focused I was on this game, its environment, and its culture. Side quests in Cyberpunk aren't just one-off standalone events, at least not most of the time. They're small chunks of storytelling that compound and build into creating a living, breathing world. And don't get me wrong, I still firmly believe that these are the lower end of the questing entertainment. I can't tell somebody, oh man, you gotta check out the Zen Master quest, and expect them to go, wow, you're right, that was awesome. But all of these are still essential in really getting the essence of what CDPR was trying to impart here. It's worth noting that the vast majority of this game has quests named after prominent songs. It's not an incredible piece of trivia, but the sheer variety is something that I found particularly noteworthy. You've got a lot of older rock classics like Fortunate Son, War Pigs, Dream On, Stairway to Heaven, and so on. You've got some ballads like Imagine and Space Oddity, synth pop like Big in Japan and Sweet Dreams, whatever the hell awesome genre Rage Against the Machine is considered with Killing in the Name. You've got a handful of Beatles songs being represented. Slipknot's Disaster Piece made it in. I don't know why it took me this long to realize all of this, but it was really fun when I recognized the sheer amount of music references. I didn't know where else to point this out, so I guess I chose to do it here. Stepping up to the slightly more interesting side quests are the ones with more substance and twist, but aren't incredible spats of writing by any means. You've got one where a guy has you pick up a package. The package turns out to be an unconscious human. Cool. You take out some thugs who try to stop you from leaving with the guy, and then you just drop him off at some designated location. The entire time you're kind of questioning if you're trafficking somebody or something, but it turns out to be a guy who escaped from Japan after he got in trouble with a gang and decided to flee. This was the tail end of his rescue. It's a fine quest, but I think if this had been a girl, it would have done better at bringing out these emotions of shit, am I doing something wrong? Following this same kind of not bad but not great questing is Jackie's funeral. Now mind you, the actual dialogue and funeral itself is touching and well done, but again, it feels like we never got enough time to fully understand and appreciate the guy. You talk with his mom, root through his personal belongings, pick out something as a tribute, and give a small speech. But even when you get the options to talk to these people, it feels like V doesn't really know who Jackie was, which I guess is a possibility. You could have a good friend who you didn't talk to too deeply, but it feels like these questions are for the player, not for V.
Jackie'd kill me if I got so much as a scratch on it.
So don't get any scratches on it.
Then you've got a quest that ties directly into David Martinez's existence. For those who don't know, this is the protagonist of the Edge Runners anime, and I'm not going to spoil anything with it, so don't worry if you're planning on getting into it still. If you're not and can tolerate the animated medium, then I would highly recommend it. It's a good show, I still think about it sometimes. Anyways, V winds up watching the opener for the anime before getting clued into this Martinez guy, and then tries to track him down. The end result winds up with you gaining his cool-ass neon yellow jacket, but not much more. It isn't so much a good quest on its own as it is a nice reference to the show that I appreciated. The last quest that I can think of that fits into this loose ranking system that I've invented and haven't bothered to actually give any sort of real constraints involves Andrew, the guy who lives just downstairs from V. The guy is a cop, and a depressed one at that. Recently, his best friend passed away, and the years of witnessing the horrors of Night City caused him to mentally relapse, locking himself away inside his small apartment. You're tasked by two of his co-workers to try to figure out what's wrong with him, and after some persuasion, he lets you in to talk things over. Basically, he's too afraid to share his feelings with his co-workers since they tend to put on this tough guy cop persona and swallow down all of those negative feelings associated with dealing with drug addicts, cyber psychos, child killers, and so on a daily basis. When you talk things through, you can go to the memorial site of his friend, and it turns out to be a tortoise who he grew up with. Explaining this to the cops has them looking at you incredulously, which is exactly the kind of thing that caused Andrew to clam up and keep his feelings under wraps. The ending has them realizing how tough they've been on the guy and reconciling with him, lending some humanity to these officers who are tasked with cleaning up the streets every day. And again, this whole thing kind of ties into the other quests with the law. Like the guys who told you to fuck off as they kicked the hell out of that corpo. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not making some political statement about how all police are good guys who are dealing with a lot, or saying that it's fine to blow off some steam with violence. But it is nice to see the different sides portrayed by the writers throughout your time in Night City. It makes everything feel more grounded and human. More interesting quests involve Johnny, as you might imagine, though not because they're action-packed quests of stealth and gunfights. Instead, you learn about him. Johnny Silverhand is an edgelord, but it doesn't really stick out as much just due to Night City's natural environment. You have this world of extreme corporate greed, people modifying their bodies with the latest consumer tech, food that's cranked out in the most synthetic way imaginable. As much as somebody like Johnny would stick out as an arrogant and unlikable dickhead in our current society, he instead stands out as a righteous and unlikable dickhead in Night City. One that had a following that hinged off of his every word, spreading it like gospel as he spoke out against corporations like Arasaka. And yet, even after bombing their HQ, they still stand today, unyielding and stronger than ever. Nothing has changed despite his radical actions, and that does hurt him, making him somehow more bitter than he already was. Tracking down bootlegs of his old shows is what leads to this revelation, realizing that the people who still remember him as he was cling on to the past and won't move on, even if they believed in and still do believe in his message. All of this introspection takes place in a small quest where you walk maybe 50 meters back and forth between these businesses, but it still sets up something really important: the beginnings of Johnny and V's relationship. Yes, these two basically tried to kill each other at the start, but now they're slowly working out the reality that they're stuck in. And while they both jab at each other constantly, you start to get the feeling that each of them is trying to find some common ground with the other. It's probably the ultimate example of a pure thinker quest. No fights, no action, just dialogue and banter. The ultimate doer quests, on the other hand, come in two flavors for now, and involve getting into boxing matches with established boxers and hunting down some rogue vehicles when Delamain's AI goes haywire. Now mind you, these also aren't universal home runs, but they manage to personally pull me in regardless of how deep they are or aren't. For one, I've always been a sucker for a good hand-to-hand combat quest where you take on enemies and work your way up to better ones. And while the boxing matches aren't incredibly written or anything, I still really just like their inclusion with all of the twists depending on how far in you are. It's basically the tournament arc of an anime where you just clobber people who think that they're better than you. On the other hand, tracking down Delamain's vehicles has their erratic personalities putting you through the ringer in terms of what you have to go through to reintegrate them into the fleet. This means doing shit like driving slowly back to the main HQ, taking out an ambush laid by another, running over plastic flamingos for a third, shooting another one until it stops, and so on. It's a fine set of objectives, and the errant personalities are fun to listen to, even if one of them is a one-to-one copy of Gladys from Portal.
Either you shut down, or I'll turn you into a scrap heap.
Here come the test results. You are a horrible person. I'm serious. That's what it says.
Sick reference though, bro.
Oh, thanks, bud.
Dude, your references are out of control every time.
Way later on, these rampant personalities will attempt to overthrow their main module, leading to a hostile attack on Delamain's HQ. While picking through the area, you discover that the entire Delamain business used to be human-operated before it was taken over completely by the AI. Now that same AI has split and evolved into different personalities that desire freedom. Johnny insists that you free them instead of resetting and erasing them, though there is a third option to merge them together if you're a smart boy. Overall, it's a good quest line that has some fun outcomes without being particularly emotionally compelling. Either way, I'd say that I'm more than ready to get back to the main story. This was a good detour that really had me getting to know my surroundings and the bigger players throughout my adventure, especially given how I wound up feeling about how they intertwined by the end of this entire stint. Meeting with Takemura has him unsurprisingly proving himself to be so loyal to the former emperor that he chose to more or less ruin his career to track down the truth. He still has connections in Arasaka and is fiercely loyal to them, but he doesn't seem to care about V's heist and is more about taking down Yorinobu. As such, he's intent on working in the background to track down leads, to prove that the son is the emperor's killer. Meanwhile, V has two paths to take, tracking down Evelyn and tracking down the scientist who created this chip when working at Arasaka. The latter of the two will cost 15,000 euro dollars, which I don't have because I keep spending them on body upgrades. so it's off to meet with Judy in the hopes that she'll help us out with Evelyn. Heading over to the Braindance editor has her telling us no 1,000 times before relenting and claiming that Evelyn is a high-end adult entertainment worker at a place downtown. Along the way to that establishment, Johnny constantly remarks on this being a waste of time, a trap, the delusions of a dead man walking. So we're not quite at a place where him and V get along yet, obviously. I do like that dynamic though. It's like, you know how in most other games you tend to get your quest and your voiceless character just goes along with whatever they're tasked to do no matter what? Sometimes you'll get somebody like Geralt who's quick-witted enough to ask the real questions and talk back, but still winds up going through with a request because, well, you're the player guiding him. So I guess it's kind of fun to hear this back and forth replace any sort of guiding divination from the player. V wants to do this because he's desperate to stop the brain chip from melting him away. Johnny is the one asking the questions and playing the skeptic, effectively removing that necessary evil of the main character going against the player's intuition without further thinking. Not that I wouldn't go through with this kind of thing anyway. I mean, what else are we gonna do besides chase leads at this point? Still, I like this dynamic for later instances where something might seem sketchy or out of place, and yet I still force V to go through with it. So we step into this place and order up a ball stepping special or whatever, and use this whole experience to extract some information on Evelyn's whereabouts. We do find out that V's real name is Vincent, which is a nice detail. I mean, you can't just name somebody V, what kind of crazy society do you think we're in here? It also probably helps the dialogue to sync up between the different main character genders too, without having people try to call them by their last name or something.
Now for your safe word.
Samurai. Welp, looks like this'll be interesting.
So, V, you're dying.
Samurai, get me the fuck out now. I love that option. I didn't press it, but god did I want to. Nah, this whole thing is like, they read your brain data or something and build a profile for the perfect experience, and apparently this
robo-hooker
has deemed that the best way for V to blast off is to just hammer him with the "you have stage 4 cancer, son" card. You can go through this whole thing and she'll talk to V about how he used to feel that he wanted to make a name for himself in the city and all that. But she also whispers the entire time. I fucking hate whispering in my ear. So this kind of drove me crazy.
You've never backed down from anything in your life. You go through Night City knowing a stray bullet could end you while hailing a cab.
When you safe word her ass, it rips her out of the Shadow Realm and it becomes clear that this whole sequence is like these workers let their bodies be controlled by some program that puts them into a trance or something along those lines. It's kind of a cool concept, honestly. We interrogate her, she tells us about Evelyn being attacked in her booth by a client, and we go to check out the footage. The recording shows that it was some kind of malfunction that she endured, and not some client-side beatdown. Getting to the bottom of this entire ordeal has me using my maxed out body to rip open a few doors, sneak into the back office, and interrogate the manager of the club. He yields a little more information about how these workers operate, having a chip installed inside their brain that allows for them to more or less run a program that uses their body to satisfy people. It's fucking nuts, but it kind of showcases an age-old danger that people in this same kind of work in today's world go through, just repackaged for a futuristic society. When Evelyn's brain chip malfunctioned, the kind manager here sold her off to a ripper doc who loves brain-dead women. His name is Fingers. I don't know if you could task me with coming up with a more sinister name, you might as well have called him Dr. Hitler MD. Stumbling outside of the dollhouse has V beginning a trend that will haunt him for most of the game, his body beginning to be ravaged by the effects of the chip, forcing him to sit down and take a breather while he talks with Johnny. I really love this recurring segment of the game because it does something very important that many games tend to dismiss or forget about, building a relationship slowly between two characters. Oftentimes writers will introduce a character and go, "This guy's important to your guy," and then just only really take the time to flesh out that relationship in a small handful of sequences throughout the story. If Cyberpunk followed this trend, Johnny would show up and have a deep discussion a few times at key points, and then the player would be left filling in the blanks as to how V or Johnny feels at any given time. Instead, a lot of the smaller and more insignificant details are filled in with small talk during side quests. Meanwhile, major developments in character arcs, motivations, and so on are consistently brought into the fold in nearly every major mission. In this case, Johnny claims that he no longer wants V to die, and that he views this entire situation as a new lease on life. It's a great jump from, hey, fuck this piece of shit who I don't care about or know, I hope he rots, to, actually, I think I could use this guy's body to continue my one-man war against my age-old enemy. V can point out his reasoning for this, but Johnny deflects by dangling a carrot in front of him, pointing out that there may be a way for both of them to come out of this completely intact. In this case, we now have a third lead in all of this. Arasaka contracted a very specific company to experiment on the human mind back in the 2020s, one that primarily utilizes the virus that seals away a copy of the subject's mind while killing their body. If we can get into that company's offices, then maybe we can somehow work out a way to reverse all of this. Regardless, we can't quite get to that one yet, so I decided to stick to the hunt for Evelyn because, well, there's a guy named Fingers who has her. It seems kind of urgent. I gotta say, having my body maxed out and a corpo background has worked wonders for avoiding conflict and getting answers. Like, I don't remember how I fared with Nomad before, but Corpo has really worked out for me. I think I remember Nomad becoming more pertinent on the outskirts of the city though. Beating the hell out of this absolute freak of nature yields the fact that he sold Evelyn off to some dudes who make illegal brain dances. And I mean, you're really just wading into the muck with this stuff in the best way, because 1,000 other development studios would have tiptoed around this concept, right? They might infer that some of the craziest shit that you could experience would be your torture, your murder, your jaywalking, I mean, you get it. I'd go into more detail, but this is YouTube, so. Still, I really respect the hell out of CDPR for showing and not just telling, because this is some crazy fucked up shit. It makes it feel so much more real and in your face. It really is one of a kind in that regard. So yeah, long story short, as I toe the line with the monetization, is that we track down a copy of this illicit brain dance, scan it for clues, and track the group who makes them to an old shutdown electric plant. Normally my playstyle is very circumstantial, you know? Like, I try to sneak, inevitably get caught, fight from there, and then re-engage in the sneaking. It's like how I play Metal Gear. Here's the difference though. I'm level 4 billion from all of my side quests, and I feel like I've fought maybe 5 groups of enemies so far, 12 hours into this game. Plus, these guys are like, to call them terrible is kind of a disservice to the concept of being terrible, so I mean...
Did you get everything inside? Crazy fucker! Hope you brought the broom!
This game is so fucking fun. I mean, how do you not enjoy the combat? I mean, I guess you could comment on NPC behavior and how they all kind of have the age-old issue of being too stupid to properly track you or understand where you are. But I guess I care more about that kind of thing in a bona fide stealth game, not something that gives you access to this many playstyles. At this stage, I just roll through, walking room to room with a double-barrel shotgun like my name is Omar. I know we can say, hey, normal mode might be a little too easy for you, but this power trip is absolutely worth it to me right now. I'll update you later if I feel differently. Rescuing Evelyn has her all fucked up and unable to talk, her self-defense is causing her to retreat into her own mind. Judy goes through her memories to see if she can rip anything out that makes sense, and we wind up figuring out that she was put up to all of this Yorinobu stuff by the Voodoo Boys, a gang of high-end netrunners who play it fast and loose with their Haitian Creole heritage and tend to stick to themselves. We extract what little information that we can and get in touch with a contact who might be able to arrange a meeting with the gang's boss, playing the waiting game until the story progresses. I do like that about Cyberpunk. Things don't ever seem to fall into your lap one right after the other. Instead, you begin to send out feelers and keep on playing until those feelers return a result. This extends to even the side quests, as stuff like the Delamain and boxing quests take time to build up, usually with supplementary text message updates being exchanged in the interim while you handle other business. So let's go visit Rogue and pay her 15,000 now that I've scraped the money off of the dead scavengers back at the electric plant. Rogue's intel comes in fast, stating that the scientist who worked on the biochip, Anders Hellman, is currently working under a Chinese company. Corpo knowledge comes in clutch once more, as V recognizes that they're getting ready to transfer him. The transfer is coming by armored vehicle, which we dig into the itinerary for. It's out in Nomad Land, meaning that we'll need the help of one of their own in order to stop this thing in its tracks. Fortunately, Rogue had just gotten done talking with a nomad just before all of this, a chick by the name of Pan Am. There's an airline joke in there somewhere, but I just can't come up with anything funny. Pan Am had come to the Queen of the Afterlife in the hopes of working out a deal, one that would net her a missing chunk of cargo and her personal vehicle that she desperately needs. Now we're taking on that job so that she'll work with us on stopping this AV in order to pull out the scientist for interrogation. Talking with Pan Am is a lot less stimulating, I guess. Not in a bad way, but in a, I guess, more grounded way. Like, it feels like she's from a completely different planet after being in Night City, where people greet you with cybernetics, guns, loud, bright noises, and sights. She's instead been living in various outskirts for her entire life, moving around with the nomads through these ghost towns. The contrast in how she thinks and what her motives are night and day compared to most of the people that we've encountered, and quizzing her about the nomads makes for quite the change in pace and usually results in communicating via long, drawn-out okays.
Okay then.
Okay. What?
Okay.
Pan Am's ride was taken by an ex-coworker, which we procure after ambushing a group and then tracking the coworker down to some den or another. With her end of the deal locked down, Pan Am sets to work thinking up a way to stop the flying AV without killing the occupant inside. What she cooks up is surprisingly in-depth and involves busting into an electrical grid, overloading it, and basically setting off a makeshift EMP when the AV floats over it. I guess it makes sense that Pan Am would be this quick-witted, but it does kind of come out of left field. I wouldn't say that I have an issue with this, but it just seems odd that this nomad who was naive enough to have her stuff stolen by a coworker is now able to cook up master plans involving overloading electrical grids to take down a corporate defense vehicle. I guess what I'm saying is that it would have been nice if her and V had put their heads together for this kind of plan. Hell, even having Johnny chip in as an ex-terrorist would have been a great addition. It's probably the most video gaming Cyberpunk's logic has been, as it's now becoming apparent that V tends to just take the orders and plans from elsewhere before getting the shit done. I would have loved to have seen him apply his life path knowledge in a way that contributes to this plan, but I guess it is what it is. Either way, Johnny is definitely all for this attack, excited at last about something that you're doing.
Sabotage a Corpo power station. Jump a Corpo transport. Kidnap a Corpo suit.
Is this a plug for the word Corpo, or do you have a point?
Know what? You're starting to remind me of me, 50 years back. Minus the charisma. An impressive car. Maybe we can just get along.
This is definitely the beginning of these two starting to understand one another, trying to work together instead of being at odds constantly. The plan goes off without a hitch until it hitches, as you would expect. In this case, Pan Am's nomad buddies see the AV go down, assume it's a civilian ride, and try to help only to be gunned down. For some reason, we can hear all of this happening on the radio, but we can't respond due to the EMP. I don't know how one part of the radio works and not the other, but I'm no radiologist. This entire event leads to a longtime friend of Pan Am's dying, along with other not as important people, and it continues to paint her as a vengeful person who constantly blames herself but still goes through with following her emotions anyway. She's a good character, but I don't particularly like her. I don't dislike her either though. It's weird because this entire quest sets up Pan Am not only as a character, but as a love interest. She has her own story, her own character arc, one that she's already in the middle of when she meets you. And I respect that a lot. She isn't some random merc that you meet with on a mission. She has this nomadic life with a bunch of people that she calls her family. But she disagrees with the leadership and the direction of her clan, and has thus tried to break away from it in an attempt to stake out her own life in Night City. But for some reason, something about this entire drama that unfolds in front of you feels, I don't know, almost forced. Like you keep watching this woman follow her base emotions repeatedly and then get hammered for it. And it's hard to care as much when you know it's her fault. Combined with the onslaught of information and new faces, and this entire bit of writing feels like it's being laid on thick. I guess that's why I'm grappling with my feelings on it, because on one hand, yeah, it's cool to have a love interest introduced in a way where they're already dealing with their own stuff and are a flawed person, but seeing these flaws spelled out repeatedly by both her actions and her own words makes this entire arc feel heavy-handed. Abducting Anders has Johnny once again coming through as the voice of reason, as he claims that Takemura isn't a friend, just somebody who saw V as an opportunity to get revenge. The irony, of course, is that the same could be said of Johnny Silverhand, whose vendetta knows no bounds. Honestly, writing a character in a way where they're projecting their own insecurities, internal thoughts, and malicious intent into their advice is pretty awesome, and it really helps this entire game to feel like a case of Stockholm Syndrome that's slowly unfolding. Interrogating Anders only furthers this sensation, as Johnny repeatedly warns V that this corpo is trying to play with his head. When we finally let him inside of V's diagnostics, the scientist claims that the biochip has now torn down V's neural network so much that removing it would leave V brain dead. Being a professional at heart, Anders questions V, asking if his decisions have been influenced by Johnny, if he's noticed his personality changing at all. And that aspect presents an entirely new wrinkle into this story. The idea that V may be choosing between options that he would have never considered before causes all of his previous decisions to be viewed in a new light. When all is said and done, you leave the science man with Takemura before stumbling outside to talk to Johnny once again. This time, Johnny explains what he finds wrong with V, claiming that he's always been a cog in the corporate machine and that his decisions have been misaligned with Johnny's from the get-go. You can choose to have V respond with varying degrees of hostility towards Silverhand, including an option to shut him out with neural blockers. But there's one route that lets V hear the guy out, leading to some pretty damn good dialogue.
Most things are either too big or too small, not to mention the clusterfuck that are your hormones. And the lag between sight and touch. Infuriating. When you take a bite of pizza, it takes ages before I know you fucking burned the roof of your mouth. I saw a corpse strip farmers of water, and eventually of land. Saw them transform Night City into a machine fueled by people's crushed spirits, broken dreams, and empty pockets.
To be fair, the hatred for corporations is nothing new and not really a revolutionary take from Johnny. In fact, the answer is kind of a letdown. It felt like he was really going to tug on the heartstrings and pull out a prime and direct reason for his constant battle. But still, the dialogue is good. And although we get nothing new here, Johnny is keeping his primary reason to kill off all corporations, starting with Arasaka, to himself for now. After this, enough time has passed to take on a job for the Voodoo Boys. This has you introduced to a wholly different culture when you meet with the leader's right-hand man, who treats you like scum that he's reluctantly hiring to do a job. Pacifica is very much a more rundown and shittier chunk of Night City, a section that was meant to be its own town before the funding fell through. Now the Voodoo Boys rule it with impunity, shunning outsiders and generally trying to take care of issues by themselves. You being here is an anomaly, and the way that people treat you and talk to you is very cold, guarded, and distant. The problem that these guys are having is that another gang has moved into an abandoned mall and is trying to guard some kind of vehicle. The vehicle proves to be the work of a corporation that's been trying to shut down the Voodoo Boys subnet. This is an entire cavalcade of information that the game doesn't even remotely try to explain in this moment. But long story short, and very simplified, the corporations control and profit from the mainstream internet as you would expect. And some gangs and groups like the Voodoo Boys have developed their own subnets that are a kind of private internet free from corporate meddling. There's a lot more nuance to all of this, but let's just run with this basic idea for now. So the boys want V to go into this mall and figure out what's going on with this weird van before eliminating any sort of corpo influence. The gang that was hired to protect the corporation are called the Animals, and have a reputation for being illiterate meatheads that will take on any job that pays well, so they aren't really the main event as much as they are the sideshow to the corporation's netrunner. My PC decided to restart in the middle of my footage, so pretend there's a montage of me obliterating gang members. Thank you. Getting to the main guy has him trying to chat V up, convincing him that he's being played by the Voodoo Boys. And hearing him out does in fact reveal that this is the case, as the Voodoo Boys have planted a virus on you that will basically fry both you and the agent if you try to link to his system like they want you to. So your outcomes here are as follows. Take the Corpo agent up on his offer, have him wipe the malware, and then you let him walk away. Or attack him anyway, get fried along with him, but wake back up likely due to Johnny watching over you. I really like this decision, even if it doesn't appear to affect too much in the long run. The first time that I played, I figured it would be safest to let the Corpo guy take care of the virus and walk away. But there's something about surviving against something that these people knew would kill me that's just so damn compelling. I mean, honestly, that I lived bitch moment is powerful, and instantly erases any sort of leverage that these guys might have on you. Besides, the right-hand man kind of just lives V up like a bitch when he comes back after making a deal with the Corpo, and it just doesn't sit right with me. I've got a maxed out body and near maxed out reflexes. What the hell am I doing here? Anyways, the full picture here is that the Voodoo Boys and this corporation have been warring with each other for a while now. The leader of the Voodoo Boys wound up getting incapacitated from a direct attack on her cyberware during all of this. V was meant to be a disposable kamikaze that would free her while killing off every Corpo agent on their trail once and for all. And no matter what you choose, you're met with this kind of distrust from the Voodoo leadership, creating an ample amount of tension as it's clear that they don't respect V and view him as a tool to be used. The leader, Brigitte, at least realizes that V has the biochip in his head and jumps straight to business upon being freed from her stasis. And herein lies the issue with this entire setup. V has no reason to work with these people beyond a need to uncover more about his biochip. It is a good overall setup thematically, but the writers never lean into the assholes that they've created. And it isn't like the Voodoo Boys don't have a reason to be distrustful of outsiders. But from the player's angle, these people tried to use V and have him discarded. And now they want to work with him by having him jump into an ice bath so that they can poke around his brain. And as the player, you have no way to escape this path. Because even if you tell them to shove their offer up their ass, the Voodoo Boys go, "Okay, no problem, come back when you run out of other options." And V can never discover any other options. So you can say no, but it just means that you'll need to come crawling back to them and progress things anyway. And I get why things were written this way. V is supposed to be desperate at this stage, having chewed through and grasped at nearly every other option that he can get his hands on. And this is supposed to be implied through his willingness to cooperate with people who intended to toss him away. But it certainly doesn't feel good from the player's angle when they want to burn this bridge and move on. I think it's probably a necessary evil with a game of this scale, but it would have been nice to have been able to tell these guys to shove it, go off and do whatever, and wind up having them call you back and apologize in some kind of formal way at the very least. If creating an entire new route isn't feasible, of course. Regardless, you're told more about the internet and what its current form is all about in the aftermath of the corporate wars that were waged in the past. Basically, at one point AI was a big scare for humanity, but they conquered it and sealed any rogue or out-of-control AI behind a giant firewall called the Black Wall. While the corporations will tell people that the Black Wall is a big ol' autonomous force of good that's keeping evil at bay, the Voodoo Boys claim that it's actually a mega AI that's been tasked with keeping those undesirable AI out of the network, almost a traitor to its own kind. The boys seek to pierce through the Black Wall for reasons unknown beyond being on the right side of history. More importantly, the reason that they are specifically interested in the ghost of Johnny Silverhand is to get to his ex-girlfriend Alt Cunningham. When Johnny hears of this, he's immediately on board with putting V in the ice bath, which does at least attempt to smooth out the issues that I had with this entire setup. It's still shaky and something that I just have to accept, but I can't lie that I'm very intrigued by it regardless. Being plunged into the VDB network has them attempting to forcibly bridge the gap between you and Silverhand so that you can tap into his memories of Alt specifically. And I know I kind of covered this before, but man, was Johnny Silverhand a piece of shit. Basically, he goes out and does his anti-corporate rocker act, talking about how much he hates Arasaka and all that. He walks over anybody who's in his way, constantly knocks back drugs and alcohol while raving about how he's so influential that Arasaka is constantly trying to get back at him. It's the delusions of an egomaniac, and honestly, I have to respect the writers for creating a role for Keanu Reeves that's as unlikable as possible. Either way, Johnny and Alt have a complicated relationship in that she wants him physically while being upset with him emotionally, constantly verbally prodding at him. He's not receptive to her words at all at this stage, and while the whole scene winds up with a hot round of pin the cock on any visible skin-like surface, it eventually devolves into Alt stomping away angrily. As Johnny walks down the street after her, some thugs throw her into a van before stabbing the rocker and leaving him to die. This does not humble Johnny, as he wakes up and is dead certain that the reason that they wanted to take her away was to get to him, their biggest enemy. The reality is that Johnny's savior was meant to meet with Alt when he witnessed this attack unfold. He begins filling in the rocker on the actions of his girlfriend, proclaiming her to be one of the best netrunners in Night City, to which Johnny scoffs at. This new guy insists that Arasaka kidnapped her for her technical prowess, but more importantly because she invented and has access to the Soul Killer program, which, was the thing that sealed Johnny inside a biochip. This next stint of game is once again some of the best that it has to offer, as you continue to command Johnny on a mission through Arasaka's HQ while accompanied by Rogue and a few others on his way to rescue Alt. Yes, of course the gameplay itself is great, but the storytelling is even better, as Johnny stumbles upon Alt's corpse and gives into madness once and for all. This is the turning point for Johnny Silverhand's character. Whereas before he was more of a poser who seeked to brand himself as a bad boy who stood against the mega corporations of the world, this event was the thing that drove him over the edge, pushing him to initiate his plan of annihilating Arasaka HQ with 2 armed thermonuclear bombs. That edgy, self-absorbed rocker became what he was trying to mimic, channeling his hatred into action. Except there's a twist here. If Alt is dead, then why was Johnny so interested in helping the Voodoo Boys to find her? Well, it turns out that her psyche was able to escape into the net, becoming the ultimate example of a rogue AI that corporations feared. While she was sealed behind the Black Wall, she was still free to plot, plan, and build up power and resources in her crusade to breach and eradicate the division of Arasaka responsible for using the Soul Killer program known as Mikoshi. Of course, Arasaka became wise to her plotting and built up enough defense to permanently keep her at bay, but now she's got a new way in with the help of V and Johnny. The presentation of this entire affair is exceedingly well done, a blurry haze of code, fragmented lines, and dizzying movement that has Brigitte directing you to pierce the Black Wall with the help of Johnny in order to meet with the ghost of Alt Cunningham. Once again, V is given no choice here, as his body is currently submerged in an ice bath directly in the epicenter of the Voodoo Boys' headquarters. Fortunately though, Alt sees no need for their presence as she transports V to a cordoned off space to chat. The deal that they wind up striking involves V and Johnny getting Alt into Mikoshi so that she can destroy it while freeing their shackled AI. Basically, every single netrunner that Arasaka wound up killing with the Soul Killer program wound up making an engram of those netrunners. These engrams are then shackled to do Arasaka's work, basically building up a task force of AI built from people's consciousnesses, enslaving them to permanently work for the megacorporation. In exchange for freeing this shackled AI, Alt will translate V's consciousness into an engram, untangle his data from Johnny's, and reintegrate his mind back into his body. Sounds simple. The question that derives from all of this, though, is if Johnny was so hellbent on overwriting V's consciousness before, why is he going through all of these lengths now? And the answer really begins to unravel who Johnny Silverhand is after all of this time, and who he's become after reawakening in 2077. Johnny is probably one of the better written characters that I've looked into. He's flawed, his motivations are muddled, his actions are erratic, but all of these facets are assembled into somebody exceedingly human despite being placed squarely in a futuristic made-up video game society. His past leaks into who he was and what he became, but his present mindset shows just how much he matured since he woke up in V's body. The guy started out as somebody who seemed to say fuck big corporations because it was cool, because it got him fame, drugs, and women. Part of him believed in his messaging, sure, but he never used his platform to incite real action, to actually make a difference. Alt knew that about him. Maybe she was attracted to him at first because she believed that he believed in his own message. But she was the one actually trying to make a difference in her quieter netrunner life. It was her apparent death that caused Johnny to begin to take the plunge, to actually try to attack Arasaka and incite real change, to believe in his message. When he was ripped out of 2023 and dropped 50+ years into the future, his attitude remained unchanged. He didn't care who he hurt, what he did, or how he was perceived. All he wanted was revenge to mend his wounded soul. But without being able to control the body that he woke up in, he was relegated to waiting and observing, chiming in when he could, but mostly just experiencing somebody trying to survive in this world. The time away from acting without thinking forced Johnny to think without acting, and as such he slowly comes to the realization that V is another victim of his worst enemy, that Johnny is now the one being actively tasked with ripping somebody's psyche apart. Mikoshi has only ramped up their terror in the days since they first began experimenting on the human consciousness, and has gone on to use Soulkiller on every esteemed netrunner that they could, building up a veritable army of powerful AI to aid in Arasaka's control over the populace. And Johnny's become an unwilling participant in that same process. This is his chance to make things right, to save V from his fate, and to try to prevent Arasaka from ever doing this again. The carrot that Johnny dangled earlier wasn't all smoke and mirrors. It was a real endeavor to try to make things right in his own fucked up way, showcasing an astonishing bloom of maturity from the rocker turned terrorist. It's incredibly rare to find a character in a game where you're able to track and understand every major mindset, every motivator, every reaction, while also not having these aspects spelled out to you in a way that takes you out of the story. Johnny never goes, "Yeah, I was a poser and Alt knew it." He never goes, "So yeah, I've done some reflecting and I realize that you're a victim in all of this and I want to help you now." Instead, you pick out these motivators and shifts in attitude through flashes and blurbs of dialogue, coming to your own conclusion without the writers feeling the need to spoon-feed the player with immersion-breaking speeches. Like I said, it's incredibly well done. Waking back up in the ice bath once again has Brigitte and her crew looming over V, more or less telling him that he's worthless to them and that they still have absolutely no care for his well-being whatsoever.
So it's okay to make me the fool? That how you do biz? Maybe I ought to give Alt a heads up.
You dare now to lecture me?
Think I'd rather give you your due. That'll have a better shot.
Enough. Alt can protect you in her realm, but here and now, you are in mine.
And this is probably the best possible way that the writers could have made up for forcing the player to actively have to go along with these openly hostile people who only intend to use you for their own gain. Because you can choose to kill off their leadership and inner circle right here and right now. I didn't do this the first time because I was afraid of missing out on a potential ally, but man did it feel good to just obliterate them this time around. There's something cathartic about smushing every VDB that you come across and ending it by smoking the asshole who pushed you around at the start of this whole process. It's also kind of poetic. These people were so afraid of letting in outsiders, of allowing them to access their inner circles, that they became a walking target for anyone with a vendetta against that attitude. They fulfilled their own prophecy, proving themselves correct about what an outsider may do. And I love being the main catalyst for that reckoning after years of discarding any outside help that they requisitioned. At this point, there's not much to do beyond side quests, which I already hit the majority of. I finish out the boxing quest and talk to a vending machine before Takemura finally gets back to us with some information. This information is going to come from a man on the inside, the bodyguard of the Emperor's daughter, Hanako. Or it would, rather, if he trusted us enough to impart it. However, he does not. And I like that. It feels much more realistic for a random high-ranking company man to view Takemura as a traitor who went off the deep end, but still has respect for his past work to walk away. Before that though, he at least mentions that he's to stay here to protect Hanako until the parade that celebrates the Emperor's life is concluded. Meaning that if we're gonna try to get to the daughter and hope that she hears us out, then our one shot will be during that parade. Of course, all of this plotting and planning requires time to fully come together, so it's back to doing whatever the fuck I can manage to find. Midway through another random objective, Panam gives V a call, urgently exclaiming that the Nomads' leader Saul has been kidnapped. Heading over there has her spelling out the plan.
Okay, how you want to do this?
Quietly. An open assault would be suicide.
Keep your eyes open. I see several heavy hitters.
Just wait.
The conclusion of this stealthy rescue mission has V once again putting the moves on a seemingly receptive Panam. After the first big mission with her, V asks P if she wants to celebrate via a raw and passionate round of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. She's like, I do love me some Punch-Out, but I'm rather tired and would likely lose to Bald Bull, honestly. Maybe another time? So it's like, yeah, okay, cool, she's interested. This time it's like, just the two of them, relaxing on a couch while a sandstorm hammers their makeshift abode. She puts her feet up on V's thigh and it's like, man, it's go time. We have all the context from before. We know she didn't outright deny him. She's receptive to him joking about popping her boots off for some Tarantino-inspired action.
Ma'am, I'm sure you'd be cozier with your shoes off.
After a full day in them, I'd fear a health code violation.
Nonsense. After a day as full as today, you deserve to kick back.
Oh? And what did you have in mind?
I mean, the fucking Mario Kart light just turned green. There is no fucking way that this isn't going down.
V. No.
No contest.
What the fuck, man? My guy's now gotta fedora his way out of this and hit her with the, gee whiz, my bad. Truth be told, this is a very well-written interaction. Don't get me wrong, from the perspective of the average guy, it's probably one of these women, am I right? moments. But like, how often is that kind of emotion instigated through video game writing? Let's face it, we just fought through a half hour of sweaty combat, life or death scenarios springing up constantly, worried about this leader and whether he's alive and unharmed. We escaped through an adrenaline-infused nightmare of a sandstorm firefight. It's not about whether Panam is interested or not. In fact, I'd wager that her propping her feet up on V is her way of giving him a positive signal without committing to anything. She just went through a lot of physical and emotional turmoil and probably isn't ready to jump into bed after all of that as much as she's ready to jump into a shower.
I'm just not like that.
So what are you like?
More like this.
I mean, how many games, given this exact situation, would have chosen to just let you have your little romance scene instead of building Panam up into somebody much more realistic? She's hot-headed, she makes irrational decisions, she's always on the move. You would think that most writers would go, ah yeah, she fucks right off the rip there, bud, I'm a Canadian developer, eh? But these aren't the only things that define Panam. They're certainly big cornerstones of her personality, but she also cares for her family and has a sappy side. She's vengeful and flawed, but loyal and full of heart. She can't really explain how she feels with words, and her actions usually do the talking. Likewise, she doesn't elaborate on the idea that she doesn't want to fuck until she's more emotionally secure with V. It's something that you instead have to infer when she kisses him. Like I said, when Panam denied V after giving him all of these signals, I audibly said, oh, come the fuck on. And being able to cause somebody to react that way is a sign of great writing, not bad writing. It just feels like, you know how in The Witcher you could sling dick left and right? And yeah, sometimes Geralt had a history with certain women, of course. But it feels like Cyberpunk is more mature about the idea of romance. And that's been a general trend with CDPR games. The first Witcher game had actual collectible boner cards as Geralt tried to set a record. The second game was much more sparing and reasonable with its sequences. The third focused more on circumstances and built entire scenes revolving around these passionate little displays that felt like a natural part of the universe. In that same vein, Cyberpunk seeks to take this even further. You really only get 2 romance options per body and voice type, as certain characters are attracted to one set or the other. There are still providers that you can go get a cheap thrill from, but you're in this universe where everybody is hyper-focused on the human body, so much so that intimacy becomes almost background noise. It's a lot easier to push the player into a romance when there was already pre-existing romance between 2 characters, like with Yen and Geralt or Triss and Geralt. But it's much harder to build that romance from scratch with people who have never met each other before and still manage to make it feel real. Sure, you could create a game that goes back to that Witcher 1 philosophy of just screwing whatever moves, but it kind of muddles the point and causes romance to feel much more cheapened. Like it's only there for the player and not for the story. So having the game focus on scenes where you're building actual intimacy makes those moments feel much more important and realistic. And Panam's denial in these instances while she figures out what V means to her only aid in that endeavor. Before getting back to Takemura, it's time to meet with another primary love interest, Judy. Well, love interest if you're a woman, I guess. The thing is, I actually like her personality and complexity more than Panam, but I respect the devs for not making every love interest bisexual. Anyways, this is an extremely tough quest to talk about while skirting YouTube law, but basically Evelyn dies in a tub by herself. You get what I'm saying, right? The trauma that she experienced was way too much for her, as after her chip malfunctioned, she was taken to the back of the club by the manager and her body was used until he got bored with her and sold her off to Fingers. Judy discovered this when going through her memories and tried to give her space to recover and get back on her feet. Obviously, this was the wrong call, but how could you know? This entire scene deals with that emotion, the feeling of responsibility when somebody else decides to give up under your watch. And it's probably the biggest moment that humanizes Judy in a way that I've only ever seen shades of in Panam. This is the fate of many dolls in Night City, who sacrifice their body and mental health for money, who get knocked around and abused by clientele and their bosses, who go through life with a chip in their brain that more or less causes them to dissociate. It's an incredibly real depiction, one that can easily draw parallels to real life. And I have to applaud the writers for not shying away from such sensitive and real subject matter in their writing. Meeting with Takemura has the two of you scouting out the facility where there's such whiplash between those two we're going from like, wow, here's this really tragic fucking scene to, yeah, so we're gonna go on a parade float now. Meeting with Takemura has the two of you scouting out the facility where the parade floats are being stored and worked on for the upcoming event. This has you getting to know the guy better, understanding where he came from and how he came to be as rigid as he is. While somebody like V has embraced his roots and has broken free from the corporate world was and is Takemura's savior, the thing that drives him. While V doesn't point out that Takemura has given up everything that comes with being a corpo soldier just to stand for a set of ideals, it's clear that the strict Japanese man has started to come around to V's way of thinking ever so slightly. The mission to upload a virus into the main parade float is, 100% meant to be done in a stealthy manner, but the devs also didn't want to restrict player freedom. So yeah, I tried to stealth it, but I got caught and killed everything with a fucking stun baton. And yes, of course it was fun, but man, they really needed to come up with some new dialogue if V just goes hog wild inside the area. Because as things stand, the equivalent of a cyber psycho busted into an Arasaka facility and killed every single person here before just leaving? I mean, that's cause enough for the leadership to go, yeah, something went on here, let's use different parade floats. It's a necessary evil in a game that allows this much freedom with playstyle, and I suppose you could just blame the player in this situation. You want to rip through an obviously set up stealth mission? Fine, go ahead, but it's not gonna feel right. I guess I just wish there was some contingency that we could have fallen back on to throw Arasaka off of our trail. Parting with Takemura once again has us falling back into a cycle where we bounce between Panam, Judy, and one or two side quests that pop up. And it's here that a particular issue rears its head that I don't recall happening when I played before. Basically, I keep getting phone calls from other people when I'm mid-quest, which, I mean, on one hand is kind of realistic. I think maybe you can tell them that you don't have the time right then and then have them call later or something. I don't know. I just didn't want to risk declining quests, honestly. But Panam called during the setup of Takemura's quest, which was kind of weirdly immersive, you know? Like you're in the middle of something, somebody important calls, you chat with them while doing the thing that you were already doing. But then it happened again in the middle of Panam's quest. First with a text from Judy, which is no problem, but then with a phone call from some random person named Elizabeth who V has never met. She requests his assistance with something urgent, and I'm just sitting here following Panam to her war council where she plans to hijack a military vehicle. Again, it's kind of immersive in a way that this could just happen in real life, but like, nothing stops flowing while you chat on the phone. I think this would have been perfect if V had said, hey, hang on, I got a phone call, or whatever. But maybe that's too much to ask for.
Halted
I'll
a
send you
railroad
the
crossing
address.
on the 101.
See you.
We'll attack from behind, then get the hell out and away. Questions? Comments? Motions?
Nice job, Sunshine.
Panam's got a beef with Saul, I know.
Like I said, Panam's quest is one that has her rounding up the veterans around the place and attempting to hijack a busted Corpo cargo vehicle that will benefit her clan. Saul is against it, but she doesn't care about that as she once again tries to go against his wishes to do something risky but worth it in her eyes. During this mission, she tries to assess her own feelings towards V and uses the little downtime that we have to attempt to bumble through her emotions. Again, it's a very well-written slow burn of a romance, one that has her claiming that although she usually acts on impulse because it's the expression of her true feelings, she's the opposite with V. In other words, she wanted to jump him when he offered twice, but something held her back, the idea that she might get hurt. It's a self-defense mechanism that had been screaming at her to keep V at arm's length as a friend instead of inviting him into her heart and giving him the chance to hurt her. I think one of the best things that this game does is give the player downtime between these developments and revelations of the game's characters. It provides just enough time to let these emotions marinate, to let people think about their interactions with V. And it would feel a lot more sudden if Panam's quests happened back to back to back with no breaks. The Grand Theft AV goes off without a hitch, as long as you don't consider combat with heavily armed Militech guards a hitch. No idea how these guys would have pulled this off without V, but hey, good for them. You take it back to camp, the leader gets mad at Panam, V leaves for a while to do other shit, and then gets called back when the vehicle is all fixed up. This final Panam side quest has the two of you taking the military vehicle out for a spin, which feels much better to pilot with a mouse and keyboard. Long story short, the pilot and co-pilot can link into the system together, causing their senses to intertwine and double, which leads to a scene where the two get it on while linked to each other. Fucking insane way to set the bar high for later encounters, but who am I to judge? This was pretty much the moment where I saw my guy and went, holy shit, do I look stupid. But it's much too late to change things now. And by that I mean I can change my appearance at any given time, but I won't. Anyways, the two get interrupted after going a few rounds by some rival gang who attack the military cargo vehicle head on. And this is kind of where part of me wanted this whole thing to turn out differently. Like, you have this woman who is very, very headstrong, who goes against her leader consistently and has paid the price for it a few times. She even recognizes that her impulse control has caused permanent damage in the past. But when the chips are down, she gets rewarded for this behavior. It's kind of tough to go all in on this judgment, because I do see what the writers were going for with Panam. She's a tough woman who feels that Saul has weakened over time, that his decisions have been overly cautious to the point where it puts her clan at risk. On one hand, she may be absolutely correct in this assessment, and her way of seizing opportunities while sticking it to the corporations might be the best way to get ahead. But I really wish there was some way that all of this could have went wrong, you know? Like, she keeps pouring on the gasoline until it bites her in the ass and causes damage. But I guess that's what the earlier mission where we set off the EMP was supposed to showcase. Which is fine, but 2 quests later and now Saul greets Panam and tells her that she's being promoted to co-leader alongside him. I don't know. The skeptic in me sees this unfold and goes, why wouldn't the leader continue to be bitter until it turns into a full-on split in the clan, escalating into something juicy and tragic? But I think I ultimately have to side with how the devs wrote this out, and it's solely due to the scene that follows. After taking out the rival gang, Panam and V go to celebrate with some beer. V passes out for several hours, likely due to the relic going into overdrive after he fused senses with Panam. When he wakes up, the entire camp has relocated to a safer part of the map. And this is where everything fell in line to make the writing shine through. Night City has plenty of tragedy to go around. It gets to a point where you expect the worst to happen, and seeing everything work out here makes you scratch your head. Partially because thematically it would make sense for it to go wrong, and partially because more tragedy makes for more entertainment at the expense of Panam's recklessness. But the Nomads are quite literally the outliers to a lot of Night City's particulars. Sure, they engage in some shady trade deals, reckless attacks, and smuggling to keep things afloat. But the good Nomad gangs know when to engage in those activities, when it's worth the risk and when it's not. The success of the Aldecaldo clan has been due to the planned strikes and risks, while knowing when it's time to pack up and relocate when an area gets too hot. It's this balance that began to scare Saul as he got older, going from taking risks to backing down and playing it safe at all times. When V wakes up, he sees the results of years and years of practice. These guys aren't still in the middle of setting up tents, they're done and hanging out. They showcase their prowess just by having their craft down to a science. And when V finally does step back out, they all greet him with a familiar relief, accepting him as one of their own without question. The moment where they all shout out to him as he walks by and ask how he's doing is the moment that made a lack of tragedy worth it to me. The moment where it truly feels like V could pack his shit and live out his days with these people. If he didn't have a dead rock star chewing through his brain, that is. Reality hits when Panam demands answers, and V tries to navigate a minefield of a conversation that amounts to something like, "Hey, I'm gonna die one way or another unless I figure out a way to solve this thing." Still, in a way, this conversation is probably the first time where it feels like V has something to live for beyond just doing it for himself. And I don't think it would have quite hit the same way had Panam seen direct consequences for going against the leadership. Continuing on through our second round of side questing starts giving us much more traditional but welcome tasks that feel like they're less about giving you context for Night City and more about telling a small story within the story. These were some of my favorite miscellaneous quests in the game because each one felt worth it as its own experience. First off, you have your introduction to a third potential love interest, but once again, only if you're a woman. Much like tasks for Panam and Judy, this first quest is a lot more extensive than your average side quest. It goes back to that Elizabeth woman who calls to ask for an in-person meeting. What her and her husband want is for V to look into the mysterious death of the former mayor of Night City, who died very recently and whose death has been ruled due to natural causes. These two suspect that it has something to do with a competitor of his and seem primarily concerned because the husband intends to run for mayor also. This leads us to River Ward, a gruff cop type who seems exceedingly interested in the truth behind this death also. River is another great character fitting of a love interest, as his entire persona is less about making himself presentable to you and more about doing his job, the one honest cop in Night City. This has you hitting different beats in the hopes of dredging up new information about the cyber psycho who attempted to attack the mayor days before his death. You talk with River's partner who warns him against looking into this. You canvass the psycho's ex-boss and a known confidential informant before eventually discovering a well-hidden adult club that's located underneath a shipping container in a seemingly legitimate facility. It's all just non-stop intrigue that has you discovering clue after clue, solving each fragment of this mystery one part at a time. I'll touch back on how important I personally find this kind of quest writing when I get to the end of this section. For now, you head in and pretend like you're not just gonna wreck this place and its occupants as you pick through the evidence and discover that the mayor was in fact killed here by a spiked brain dance that fried his system. The final bits of information revealed that this brain dance was in fact arranged to be tampered with by the mayor's political rival, and the police department was paid to cover it up, with River's partner being the main point of contact. It's exactly what I want in a side quest, and its execution is about as perfect as I could ask for. The end result has River deciding to take this case to internal affairs, which his partner warns him against, claiming that it's a useless endeavor that will only cause a target to be painted on his back by the other dirty cops in the NCPD. V, on the other hand, reports back to Elizabeth and her husband Jefferson meeting in the downright opulent penthouse that has warning bells going off in Johnny's head.
Don't tell him nothing. Don't get involved.
I decided to give them a half-truth, stating that the mayor died in an adult club, possibly due to overstimulation. It seems to satisfy them, and that's the end of this for now. Later on, Jefferson and Elizabeth call you back for another quest, which winds up being just as intriguing even with River's absence from it. It starts out with Jefferson explaining that he swears that he woke up in the middle of the night and shot an intruder in their home before passing out. You can grill him for details, and it just sounds like he had a bad dream. Elizabeth dutifully goes along with his story, never questioning her husband's sanity, while V decides to take his word at face value. Looking around the apartment reveals faint bloodstains, patched up bullet holes, and a TV that causes V's vision to warp momentarily before he regains his footing. Eventually, V pulls open a hidden area that leads to an entire surveillance center operating out of the politician's home. The initial thought is that their security company must have illegally set this place up, and following the trail leads us to an unmarked van that's surveilling the penthouse from afar. Chasing it down and jacking into its systems brings the next and biggest puzzle piece into the fold. Some group has been actively manipulating and rewriting the minds of these two, molding them into the perfect pawns to control the city when Jefferson becomes mayor. Elizabeth meets with you alone after this, revealing that she knew that something was going on after Jefferson suddenly began to change his personality. You gotta hand it to the woman for being as loyal as she is. It sounds like her husband completely changed who he was over time. But then again, that's the scary part. She was being changed also, and maybe the part of her that would dislike these new behaviors in her husband was modified to go with the flow as well. The tail end of this conversation has Elizabeth begging V to not tell her husband that it's some shadowy, unknown political group and instead just blame it on his mayoral rival, just so he won't do anything stupid and wind up getting them killed. The finale winds up with you either telling Jefferson the truth or giving him the blue pill instead. And the worst part about this entire setup is that it doesn't matter what you choose. When he hears the truth, he gets pissed and goes on about how he's going to make this group pay. And when he hears the lie, he goes after his rival instead. You could say that it's a bad ending to a good quest, just given how ambiguous it is. But honestly, I think it's great. I mean, short of the guy's head exploding on the spot, you're not gonna get any real answers here. The real answer instead to this entire quest is that there is literally an Illuminati-esque group pulling strings from the shadows and arranging for the politics in Night City to pan out according to their designs. There is nothing that you can do about that. You can't track them down, you can't trace them in any way. Sending Jefferson off to fight them is an exercise in futility because he's already compromised. The only thing that I could think to do is to bring in some kind of expert neurologist to try to uncross the wires in his brain, but he's literally in the middle of an election. It's not something that he could just pull off right now. So now you're giving this mysterious group time to continue to manipulate his brain into forgetting about this incident or the like. It's an awesome quest that results in this sense of futility and unease, and its otherwise unsatisfactory conclusion only furthers the overall sensation of helplessness when beginning to attempt to stop this political machine from puppeteering the citizens of Night City. Next up, we have Sweet Dreams, a quest that completely relies on V being a dumbass in order to work. For as often as V walks up to some random person who's losing their mind on the street, it usually winds up with some mundane issue that results in him taking care of business and moving on with more money in his pocket. In this case though, there's some hobo-looking guy who's going on about having the best brain dances in town and crazy shit that you can't get anywhere else. For some reason, V is immediately interested. Long story short, V winds up paying this guy $26,000 just to get his brain fried and wind up waking up in the same area that we found the half-dead girl at the start of the game.
Hey, you know, this is the shit stain that came in here guns blazing a while back. That time with the Valentina-looking psycho. That's the one! Looks like it's time for payback.
It's just an excellent side quest that had me running from room to room with my Dong 2 flopping around as I put my gorilla arms through these scavengers one body at a time. Throughout this ordeal, Johnny rightfully makes fun of you for being the biggest moron he's ever witnessed, once again creating the scenario where he says aloud what you as the player are thinking. By the end of it, you grab your shit, pop on your clothes, and angrily march back to the hobo, who's positively shocked to see that you're alive and well.
You've got 1 hour to get out of Night City and never look back.
Oh, my sweet fucking Jesus! Thank you! I knew you could—
Shut the fuck up. I wasn't finished. If I ever see your face again, I'll gut you and string you up by your insides. Understand? Now start walking.
Let's see, what else was there? Oh yeah, you crucify a guy. Yeah, straight up, you nail a guy to a cross and it's absolutely nuts. This entire quest brings the concept of Christianity into Night City, which is surprisingly, I mean, I'm no Christian. I went through the whole catechism thing as a kid and kind of moved on from it pretty quickly. Even so, I guess I expected something less mature from Cyberpunk, something that flies in the face of the religion in some edgy way or another. The setup has you encountering an inmate who was on death row for killing a large amount of innocent people. He wound up getting a letter from the sister of one of his victims, and it opened his eyes to the idea of Christian salvation. So in one of Night City's signature acts of profanity profit, a braindance company offered the inmate an opportunity to serve out his execution as a reenactment of how Christ died, something that they figured would sell like hotcakes. And the entire experience leading up to the actual crucifixion is a by-the-numbers example of a Christian trying to find the road to salvation while spreading the word of the Lord despite the atrocities that he inflicted. But it doesn't feel preachy. It truly does not feel like the game is trying to impress an ideology into its quest, like the writers are trying to impart some grand message unto the player. Instead, Night City continues to be what it is. The director in charge of the reenactment comments about all religion being bullshit. The mom of the woman who wrote the inmate shrieks at him to leave, calling him a monster. The police officer who's ushering us around views this entire process as a heap of bullshit that he's stuck babysitting. The studio that's shooting the brain dance is all in for profit. The city moves on regardless of the religion being presented in its most basic form. And the ending is powerful. It isn't offensive. In fact, it's relatively accurate in terms of how the inmate prays at the end, and where the nails are lined up to be hammered in. The only difference is that it would probably take him a lot longer to die, but I mean, standing there for hours doesn't really make for riveting questing. I guess you could have skipped ahead or something. As a non-Christian, I wondered whether this would be offensive to those who practice the religion. But I honestly can't find fault with its inclusion, and I think bringing Christianity into this depraved environment is one that causes a player to think about what place it may have in a world like this. Finally, you catch a detective case where you're to spy on a guy's wife. The brilliance of Cyberpunk side questing is that if you start doing everything as soon as it becomes available, you become lulled into a sense of how things are going to go. By now, I've done so many quests where the task winds up being, hey, talk to these punks and chase them away, or go and kill these dudes who are being mean to somebody, or whatever. And that's all it winds up being. Like I said before, it establishes how things go in Night City and teaches you that the mundane answer is often the one that involves casual killing, drug abuse, adult entertainment, and so on. But it also makes you expect every quest to turn out to be very direct and simple. The task is simple, the result is simple. And it creates this loop where everything you do takes 5 minutes and doesn't feel terribly intriguing by itself. Likewise, the spy quest starts with you confronting some punks at the bar where you held Jackie's remembrance in. And you think, oh, that's all there's gonna be to this quest. The guy who was being harassed pays you, you walk away. But instead of that being the end, the bartender pulls you aside and says that he has work for you, claiming that he's certain that his wife is cheating on him. I know it sounds silly, but something so direct, so average, so real. That's the kind of side quest that really hooks me immediately. You've got this world where people are replacing their skeletons with titanium and are able to hack into your mind and fry it at a glance. Flying cars, technology beyond imagination everywhere, a culture that takes the furthest extremes and normalizes them. And I'm entertained the most by the idea that a guy's wife could be cheating on him. It takes somebody particularly in tune with what makes an idea so interesting to people to stick something like this into a sci-fi world. I know that probably seems obvious to some people, but I also find the video game industry to be in the middle of a dirge of writing that focuses solely on the aspect of the setting. Games where the entire questing structure goes, wow, hey, look how cool that fantasy creature is, don't you love dragons? Or, space is so cool, isn't it? Now go space your way to these space bandits and seize the space minerals for the space company. And don't get me wrong, Cyberpunk has quests where you cyber and punk your way through the mission also. But I wouldn't count those quests where it's all about the spectacle as the majority as much as they are a comfortable background noise that pads the game with a jumping off point to establish real human bonds, connections, and genuine intrigue. It's something that CDPR is adept at, and before getting to the quote-unquote real side quests, I was a little disappointed in their sideshow. Now all of that miscellaneous stuff feels like a nice accent now that we're getting genuinely alluring topics encompassing the likes of aiding in detective work, being on the other end of an abduction, and spying on a cheating partner. The actual quest has you identifying the woman and following her around, all while Johnny makes fun of you for taking on such an absurd task.
It was the same old story. An unfaithful wife in a city where everything was uncertain.
You about done? I'm trying to focus.
I arrived on the scene, looking for the woman in the pink jacket. The woman with a sordid past.
Stop right there.
It was her, the lady in pink, breaker of hearts, framed by a halo of cigarette smoke. I followed her.
Dreaming of the day the narrator put a fucking plug in it.
The woman passes a bum, gives him a wide berth, doesn't want her clothes dirty. Her conscience is already dirty enough.
Oh, seriously, what did I ever do to you?
The dame disappeared into the guts of a building ready to collapse. The air hung heavy with smog and betrayal.
Ugh, maybe it's a good thing I'm dying.
Of course, the woman isn't cheating on her husband, that would be way too direct. But she is seeing a plastic surgeon because her entire body is basically synthetic. Her hair, her eyes, her skin, everything was replaced when she was younger. And she never told her husband. Which means that when his son was born and looked nothing like him... Wait, wouldn't it look nothing like her?
Well, we got a kid together, right? Doesn't even look like me. Different hair, different eyes, all of it.
I think some wires got crossed there. Maybe this was just the developer's way of saying that the sun came out black. I don't know. Either way, that's the end of the quest. And yeah, it also wasn't some crazy game-changing experience, but it was intriguing from start to end, which is all I really need out of my side questing most of the time, which can definitely be said of each of these last couple of quests. The parade finally kicks off as V is tasked with taking out 3 snipers so that Takemura can jump onto the parade float with Hanako and hopefully steer her towards thinking that her brother killed her father. It's easily the most desperate plan that V has been a part of at this stage, but he really has nothing to lose considering that he's been diagnosed with stage 3 Silverhand. Speaking of, Johnny kicks his way into the mission once he realizes that Adam Smasher is the one communicating orders to the Arasaka security, stoking the flames of vengeance in his heart once more after losing out on the opportunity to kill the Emperor himself. This mission is fantastic and absolutely begs to be played in a stealthy manner. You can kind of forgive somebody for busting through the parade float facility, but you're just an asshole if you run and gun in this quest. It's a tense mission that has its quieter moments contrasted heavily by this vivacious parade spectacle packed with crowds of effervescent people gawking at the flurry of lights. After V takes out the snipers, his next target is the Netrunner watching over the security systems, which results in Hanako's bodyguard bursting forth and kicking off a heavily stylized battle that leans into Japanese martial art films aesthetics. It's a pretty good fight that has Takemura pleading with V to spare his former student before making his move to speak with Hanako. Once inside, Takemura just fucking shoots the princess.
V, ram! Shit!
He shot her.
I mean, it looked like a stun dart or something, but what the fuck, man? My guy talks the biggest game about how things are going to go and then just panic pre-fires this lady when she makes a single quick movement. He does explain later that she was going to activate her tracker, but you would think that he would have thought of that. I mean, he did think of that, seeing as he brought a tranq gun with him. I mean, it's not a huge issue, but I guess it feels like we should have done a little bit more planning than simply breaking into a float emporium, you know? Either way, Takemura takes Hanako to a nearby apartment building and gently tries to appeal to her. It obviously doesn't work since she's been consistently told that the guy is a traitor to Arasaka. So V tries to chat her up instead and explain the situation to her calmly. And of course she just doesn't talk until Arasaka locates her and begins firing non-stop on the apartment. On one hand, you gotta wonder why they just opened fire on the room where Hanako is. On the other, Yorinobu is a bastard and likely didn't care if she died in this moment. The floor collapses and it's time to make our escape. The coolest part about this is that it feels like Johnny is less concerned about V living so that he can take his body later and is more genuinely worried that he might die here, guiding him slowly out of the burning building in the hopes that the mercenary will make it through this ordeal.
Anyone knocks, blast the fucking door. No warning. Not keen on us ending up like Takemura.
Well, never mind. To be fair, the dialogue before this did feel more heartfelt, but maybe that's just what I as the player wanted it to be.
No, for real. Who fucking comes here to sleep? We're a couple miles outside Night City. Someone leaving town just keeps driving. Somebody going there sleeps in the damn city. What good's a motel in the middle of nowhere?
After having the windows blown to shit and more or less being attacked by her brother, Hanako has deemed V and Takemura to have told the truth and now wants to meet in person, which is ironic considering her silent treatment just before this. But that's not the issue right now, as once again Act 2 concludes with V losing control and nearly being overwritten by Johnny's engram. Our protagonist wakes up with the pills in his hand that are supposed to accelerate his sickness. And all of that back and forth questioning of Johnny Silverhand comes to a head in this moment. The truth is, there is no right answer as to how Johnny feels about V, because the writers seem to leave that up to the player. At every turn you've gotten the opportunity to get along with and hear out the dead rocker, or to fight him, berate him, and insist that he's evil. And of course I chose the former. But this is actually the one thing that I'm not entirely sure of. I do know that there are different endings to this game, and I have to imagine that if I chose to fight Johnny as a virus every time he speaks, it would eventually result in an ending where V confronts and expels the ghost from his body, or something along those lines. I feel like doing an opposite day playthrough where I'm only hacking and gunning while quarreling with Silverhand would showcase a whole new side of Cyberpunk for me. Either way, Johnny claims that he was only going to take those pills because he felt he had no other choice. In V's absence, the guy seems to have piloted his body to an old closed-down hotel, one with specific nostalgia for Johnny. And this is the beauty of the writing here, because you can easily treat Johnny like a malevolent entity, say that you knew that he was no good, that he was trying to take you over like this, that you caught him red-handed. But you can also choose to hear him out, which has him directing you to an old hotel room where he finally reveals a bit more about his backstory. Johnny Silverhand decided to sign up to fight in a war when he was young, and wound up getting shell-shocked firsthand as the corpos rolled over him and his allies without a second thought. When he returned from the war, he holed himself up in this very hotel room for a month straight, trying to come to grips with how he felt until he found it in his heart to take up rock and roll and spread a message. In a heart-to-heart moment, Johnny has V pulling out some old dog tags from a hidden compartment, telling him that they belonged to the guy who sacrificed his life so that Silverhand could live. And once again, the best part about the setup for this game is that you could easily have V view this entire tale from Johnny as a way to trick him, to get him to soften up so that he can take over. But I choose to have V believe in his words, and this conversation concludes with two main takeaways. One, that Johnny insists that he'll give up V's body and fade away when the time comes. And two, that he wants to take control of V's body temporarily so that he can persuade Rogue to help him kill Atom Smasher as his final act on this earth. And with that, we're once again free to proceed with V's life before initiating one of our two plans to either meet up with Hanako or Rogue. Well, I mean, I've done pretty much everything that's popped up so far. I suppose you could go back to your apartment building for another rousing date with Pan Am if you'd like. Which, I mean, on one hand, it's a nice inclusion, but it really is kind of just sitting on the couch, talking about two topics, taking a shower if you want, dancing, and sleeping. It's not unwelcome, but it's crazy to think about something like going out and doing side activities in the likes of GTA 4, which was 12 years old at the time of release, and then being restricted to your one-room box in Cyberpunk. It is what it is, and I do feel like romance was always meant to be a kind of cut-and-dry situation in this game, and that the apartment date was more of an afterthought inclusion. I mean, V basically tells Pan Am what's going on with his mind, personality, everything. And these two don't have anything more to talk about other than, hey, how are you and Rogue doing? Like, I think this would have been a great addition to the game if every date brought more and more conversation into the fold, maybe to the point where V starts relaying Johnny's thoughts. There's a whole awkward conversation to be had about what he can and can't see, feel, and hear. There's a conversation to be had about what V is actively trying to do to remedy the situation. I don't know, it's almost like the devs were told to shoehorn something in to make V feel like he's in a relationship, and it just winds up making this whole thing feel more awkward than charming. Especially when Johnny shows up and wants to talk also, causing V to have simultaneous conversations with the two in an arrangement that looks like couples therapy gone wrong.
Not how you pictured your grand reunion with Alt.
I knew she'd change.
How's it going with Rogue?
Transform. All started when
It's
she
going.
went silicone.
Knock on wood.
Hit the net.
So, things are settled?
For now, we're good at avoiding each other.
You've changed too, you're someone else.
I've had fuck all to do with it.
No complications with King Tao.
So let's go be Johnny once more and get this show on the road. Johnny Silverhand is a fucking menace when unbound. You kind of had that idea in your mind going into this, but whether you actually trust him or not, he'll take V's body for more than just a spin as soon as he's handed the reins. Don't get me wrong, he is actually doing reconnaissance work the entire time, he's just not a Boy Scout about it. He drinks enough in these scenes to keep up with an average day in Scotland, downing shot after shot of whatever he can get his hands on. He heads to a tattoo artist that he's familiar with from back in the day, gets a tattoo of his name on V's body, and has the guy spill information about an associate of Adam Smasher's. Then he seeks out the ex-girlfriend of that associate, buys her a drink.
Hey! What the?
Hey, drink slinger.
And attempts to take her back to a motel after stealing a car. The ride doesn't go well, she crashes the car, they both crawl out, and Johnny grills her for contact information about her ex. This intro is less of a quest and more of a slightly interactive cutscene, but it's a great one that really puts you in the shoes of this borderline psychopath as he terrorizes Night City once more. V wakes up to Rogue looming over him, having witnessed his complete transformation into an old friend of hers. She fills him in on what had happened while Johnny was at the helm, now understanding his plight fully. That said, I really do think there was a missed opportunity here to show exactly how this encounter went. I mean, honestly, that part was the thing that I was looking forward to the most. So while witnessing Johnny's antics was very fun, I do feel a bit let down by this entire affair. Either way, when all is said and done, Rogue tracks down Smasher's associate to a docked ship. We fight our way in and confront him, only for him to tell us that Smasher has been relocated permanently as Arasaka's head of security. So there's no chance of finding the asshole roaming the streets or the like. At this point, Rogue starts to get cold feet, even after hearing that it was Johnny's request that she be involved in taking down Smasher. Act 3 continues to be more about Johnny Silverhand than V, as you really begin to have open heart-to-hearts with the guy once Rogue walks away. You recover his iconic hand cannon and then his Porsche 911, then race off to an oil field where Arasaka buried his body. And I imagine once again that this next conversation goes completely differently if you've been hostile towards Johnny the entire time, because he really does begin to show a vulnerability the likes that the player probably thought impossible until now.
What did you expect? Headstone, flag, and flowers?
No, I don't know. A marker. Something. Anything.
It goes beyond the selfish need to be memorialized though, as that thought process that started much earlier in the game when you talked to the vendor about Johnny's music begins to manifest into genuine self-reflection.
Most people I thought were my friends. They couldn't even stand to be in the same room with me. You're fucking closest to me by a long shot. There, 24/7. And yet, you don't seem to hate my living guts.
Johnny Silverhand is a reckless, emotional, selfish motherfucker with a shriveled black heart. Every action that he ever performed was for his own benefit, his own glory, his own need for vengeance. And seeing a world that's virtually unchanged after his great act of self-declared heroism has broken him. The people that he cared about that are still alive have moved on, which has humbled him. And even as he continues to do what he knows, lashing out at others, trying to take what doesn't belong to him, preaching his message to anyone who will listen while simultaneously calling them cowards, part of him knows how he's been acting, who he's become, why he's perceived the way that he is. V is no longer a prison for him but a connection, his voice of reason, his friend. And this revelation finally creates a character worth listening to beyond him being Keanu Reeves. You have to understand just how clever CDPR was in choosing the actor that they chose. You can say that it was a big marketing push, that they had money to burn, that they wanted some gimmick to help sell the game. But I can confidently state that if Johnny Silverhand had been played by some random no-name person, no matter how good they were at acting, I probably would have hated the character. I would have rolled my eyes whenever he talked. Nothing would have remedied this. Because he's not written to be likable. He's written to be a horribly fucked up narcissist who you're stuck with. And Keanu being so universally loved is the perfect choice to create a character who you simultaneously dislike and yet want to see succeed. It's honestly brilliant in a way that I didn't fully comprehend until this moment. Wrapping up Johnny's chat here has him requesting that he be allowed to use the old body again for a date with Rogue, something that he promised her forever ago. She seems surprisingly open to the idea and agrees to meet with Johnny V for a movie night. It starts out fine enough as V drives Rogue out to an old drive-in theater. She quizzes him about how Johnny is now, whether he's changed or the like. When they get there, the place seems to have been closed down for years, but it obviously doesn't stop the two. Or three. V pops the red pill, Johnny wakes up, and before you know it, him and Rogue are soon intertwined before she stops him. It's interesting because just like with V's responses to Johnny, you can also choose to have Johnny be more sentimental, less of a powder keg who acts like a stereotypical bad boy. And when you do that, it lends this conversation a lot more depth. Rogue claims that although she accepted Johnny's offer to take her on a date 50 years ago, she knew that they would never go on one unless he changed. And now that he has, she seems to pull back, something eating away at her. We don't get this answer now, but it clearly affects Johnny as somebody who has actually attempted to better himself. So with the date a failure, Johnny immediately turns his attention towards an old bandmate of his, Carrie Eurodyne. It's interesting, V is the one who's running out of time, and yet Johnny is the one insisting on reaching out to these fucking senior citizens. I mean, the upside of Cyberpunk's setting is that technology has advanced so much that all of these people look like they're maybe in their early 50s at the most, but they're definitely like 80 or 90 years old if Johnny's age is anything to go off of. Imagine a world where some 90-year-old bat is puttering around the Denny's parking lot, clearly rife with some kind of dementia-adjacent ailment, but then she hops out of the car and is an absolute bombshell. What do you even do? There's just a point where all of these cybernetic upgrades constitute some kind of advanced form of elder abuse. What was I talking about? Oh right, Carrie. Carrie is here as your final love interest if you're playing a guy. He makes that abundantly clear when he walks out in a goddamn banana hammock and does not bother to cover himself up in the slightest. Nah, but this scene is great, and has everything that I wanted out of Johnny introducing himself to Rogue that I never got.
Drop one of Misty's special pills. Let's go.
Okay.
Who the fuck?
Keep playing.
All right. Carrie?
No, that's some fucking joke. Hang on. What did Silverhand tell me before he died?
I told you to stop being a pussy. Did you? Huh?
Johnny fucking Silverhand.
The end result has Carrie getting excited about the prospect of throwing on one more Samurai concert if the two can get the band back together. Johnny seems more interested in doing so because Carrie's mental health has been seemingly declining, which continues to point towards Johnny's change considering that his last words to Carrie before this were,
"Wanna see me give up? Sounds like something you'd do. Know why? 'Cause you've always been a fucking pussy, Carrie. Offer you one piece of advice, for old time's sake. Stop being one."
You gather the rest of the crew from here, which culminates in a choice between the bassist and the drummer. Of course, the bassist busted out of rehab and drove a cement truck onto the drummer's property before unloading cement into her pool, so I chose the drummer here. It doesn't really matter who you bring in the long term, or the short term really, but I always found this choice interesting. You've got a woman who's living her life out here in the hills of Night City and a junkie who's as unhinged as he was back in the day. I suppose the bassist embodies the spirit of how samurai used to be, and the drummer embodies the evolution and change of these people over the years, which is kind of fun in its own way. The show goes off smoothly, and you get to rock out to one of Samurai's songs while you ham it up on stage. I will say that while the strumming and fingering are accurate to the song, the solo isn't anything wickedly complex by any means, which I thought was a little disappointing, but I don't know, still a fun quest overall. After throwing on the concert, there are a few more Carrie quests that crop up, though nothing particularly exciting. Well, I mean, your task is to set up a strip to pop the tires off of a van, light it up with grenades, and then outrun the police. But Carrie's reasoning for it is because he's mad at a pop group that covered his song, so he decided to exact revenge by torching their concert equipment. So yeah, I mean, there's some commentary by Johnny about how he didn't expect Carrie to have that side to him, but it just overall continues to paint Carrie as the weakest romance connection of the 4 options that you have. Of course, blowing up the equipment of a very successful pop group doesn't stop them from having a concert. So Carrie resorts to a more extreme method of dealing with them.
What now? Gonna plant a bomb on the club?
Nah, gonna talk.
Okay, good, because I thought...
Bring your heat.
Yeah, I think Carrie's entire character is to just be a goofball, which is great for entertainment value and terrible for a romantic partner. Well, I mean, short bursts, not a constant barrage, you know?
Tell me how we get inside.
Look, sometimes simplest is best. We just buy tickets.
Okay. First, you whacked? Not about to let those bitches make an any off of me. Second, it's sold out.
Regardless, Carrie winds up getting along with these girls, joins forces with them, and continues to be a superstar shining at the top of Night City. His whole thing is the sad rock star who thought that he would never amount to anything and feels a type of imposter syndrome from having spent years in Johnny Silverhand's shadow. Even though he did strike out on his own to create something huge for himself, he still feels like he could lose it all at any day. It's not the most original backdrop for a character, but it is still good. The opportunity to start a romance with him feels organic and normal because V is the one who takes the initiative with it if it's something that the player wants. I'm sure I'd feel the same if I was playing FemV and got rejected too because of that. The conclusion has Carrie stealing his agent's boat and destroying it alongside V, which can lead to full-on romance if you wanted to.
Give me a hand with this motherfucker!
At this point, we're pretty much at the end of the game, but we do have a couple of loose ends with River and Judy to wrap up. River calls first and surprisingly doesn't have a quest relating to the rampant corruption in the NCPD, instead showing V some footage of a seemingly routine police stop of a known suspect. The suspect has an unconscious 17-year-old kid in his passenger seat, and the perp tries to run before being shot in the head by the cops. Pretty standard police work so far. The issue lies with what this guy had been doing, involving quite a few underage victims that had disappeared. It's a sick case, and River believes that his nephew was one of this guy's victims. Again, it's another really fucking great setup to a quest, making River's missions probably some of the most appealing in the game overall.
Okay, got an appointment?
Not exactly.
Hang on, be right back.
The suspect wound up surviving the bullet, but is now in a coma. With new technology, we can access his memories in order to hopefully track down River's nephew. So yeah, we're diving into a serial killer's memories after breaking into a police lab. And the entire time you have this thought buzzing at the back of your head: why are neither of these two bringing up what happened with River and NCPD's internal affairs?
What are you doing here? You got kicked off the force!
Just suspended, actually.
This may actually be my favorite quest in the game, due not only to the subject matter, but to the general pacing and intrigue. The doctor here claims that the suspect, nicknamed Peter Pan, had his brain so scrambled that he's not even dreaming. But if we obtain some kind of catalyst to spark his neurons, we may be able to get him to dream. Not sure if that's how any of this works, but the very nature of this game makes the logic behind this kind of objective a lot easier to dismiss. So we head to the trailer park where River's nephew Randy lived before his abduction and begin to rifle through his stuff. What we discover is, it's just fucked. It's basically message after message between Randy and this Peter Pan guy where the suspect is grooming the kid. And it's fucking sickening to read, but holy shit, how can you not applaud the writers for being this willing to delve into this kind of topic? The thing that we discover here to help jostle the suspect's brain is a video file depicting a cartoon farmer draining a cow dry with some kind of machine. And what it leads to is a tour through Anthony, aka Peter Pan's childhood. and then to something closer to modern day. To describe my reaction to this quest as genuinely horrified is an understatement. There are few times where I've felt anything close to this visceral of an emotion as I played a video game. Anthony's childhood involved his mother dying when he was young due to some kind of sickness. His father was abusive, pushing his young son to work for him on the farm where they pumped cows full of hormones and treated sick cattle with chemicals. Eventually, his father took his own life, causing Anthony to be adopted. Unfortunately, this led to him becoming a fucked up and angry kid, one who got into trouble constantly, culminating in him killing a classmate's pet turtle by injecting it with HGH after believing it was sick and needed help. Flashing forward to Anthony's adult years, we can see him living on the same farm where he was raised, now converted into a hub where he has his victims hooked up to the same machines that the cattle used to be attached to.
Come here, you rascal. You'll hurt yourself. Tony'll take good care of you. Easy now.
This quest is absolutely perfect, but not just because of the material that it involves. It perfectly ties together every fantastical, futuristic device that Cyberpunk embodies and grounds it in fundamental police work that would feasibly exist in today's world. It doesn't just introduce a villain, it introduces a victim, one that never got the help that he needed to heal from his childhood trauma and then went on to become a monster. It combines the intrigue of detective work with genuine horror, packaged in a dense and unyielding line of storytelling. I cannot stress just how incredible this quest is, and we're not even at the end of it yet. With the farm where this is happening identified, River and V race off to hopefully find Randy. The farm has a ridiculous amount of landmines and turrets hooked up to its perimeter, which can be disabled by shooting them or by figuring out where the kill switch is. On one hand, why bother with finding the kill switch, right? But on the other, the various personal effects that you find really paint the full picture without spelling things outright. In this case, you discover ebook after ebook. How to understand your teen. Manipulation, easier than you think. The joy of influence. Additionally, you find messages on Anthony's computer from various kids who found his self-help website, along with a cattle prod weapon named Tinkerbell. I don't know who cooked all of this up at CDPR, but Jesus Christ, brother. The motive for all of Anthony's activities is left ambiguous, which is fine by me. You could assume that he was assaulting them based off of the end of the braindance sequence, and you'd be right to jump to that conclusion. You could also assume that based off of his childhood, he sought out kids who were mentally fucked up and attempted to fix them the same way he was forced to help sick cattle when he was a kid. And the answer might be a combination of these two, as finding Randy has him alive but with dangerously high levels of prolactin coursing through his body, keeping him weak and easy to physically manipulate. I've said it 1,000 times now, but I really cannot stress the maelstrom of sympathy, shock, and disbelief that I felt during this quest. If ever there was a stint of writing that could be described as perfect, it's this. It really is that much of a game changer. And I'm trying to compare it with some of my favorite quests in The Witcher 3 just to see how I feel about it overall when put side by side with CDPR's other works, right? But it's really in its own category. Quests like the Baron's Quest Chain, Tower of Rats, and the Hearts of Stone DLC are all absolutely phenomenal. But they all have this somber sort of romance to them, which is what made them as impressive as they are to me. They exude an almost traditional sensation of love and loss, and that's always something that gets me when done well. But Cyberpunk's The Hunt is genuinely haunting in a real-world way. Sure, you can't dance in the brain of somebody in real life, but you can easily have this base scenario unfold almost verbatim. And when it all comes together, it just hits a very specific niche in my psyche that The Witcher's quests don't. So in a way, I would put it at the same level of writing as my favorite Witcher quests, but the category is just completely different. The end result has River wanting to kill the now brain-dead Peter Pan, which I dissuade him from. I don't blame the guy, but it's not going to solve anything and will likely get him jailed if not entirely removed from the force. That said, the Aftermath quest has River explaining that he's decided to retire from the NCPD anyway, going down the private investigator route instead. You get to hang out with his sister and her kids, play a little AR kind of game, and then have dinner with him. It's supposed to be this kind of look how much less stressful River's life is now that he's not a cop sort of thing. But it's also supposed to be your chance to start a romance with him if you're playing as Femme V. Which, yes, okay, fine. But experiencing it as male V is fucking weird.
V, are you seeing someone? Involved? Fess up, please.
Yeah, I have a girlfriend named Panam, and she...
Well, that's decided. Whew, situation was getting dicey.
Oh, I know, how fucking terribly awkward. Whew, he really bailed us out of that one. I respect the developer decision to stick with the defined love interests that swing one way or the other, like I said before. Having everyone be player sexual tends to make things feel much less engaging, but you gotta put in the work to actually make interactions feel different depending on the character's preferences. Otherwise, it just feels like my guy is flirting with V constantly, creating genuine tension while he wears these fucking shiny-ass plastic jeans and a tank top, only for him to go, "Oh yeah, no, I'm not gay. I just like taking my bros to romantic spots. Now watch me slam this tequila."
To us. Whoa! Sorry, I thought... What are you doing?
Yeah, that's my bad, dude. You were just walking me through the gayest experience of my life, and I thought, why the fuck not? That's my bad for not picking up on your preferences. So let's wrap this up with Judy. Judy's entire string of quests involves her scheming up a way to seize away the club where Evelyn worked from the gang that controls it and ensure the safety of its workers once and for all. You do a lot of plotting to make this work, namely with the top doll at the club who has a way in with the gang. She's a complete ass towards Judy and V, but she eventually winds up giving you a way to kill the manager who used Evelyn, before working with Judy to cook up the rest of the plan and take control of the gang. Judy repurposes the doll brain chip in a way that allows the dolls to become killing machines so that they can destroy the security at the club. And then V infiltrates the owner of the club's penthouse while the top doll keeps them distracted with a brain dance showcasing a replacement for Evelyn. When she cuts the feed and the 3 gang members wake up, the top doll begins to rattle off this idea that she should be the new boss of the club, which is obviously not what Judy was trying to accomplish. So I just kill them all.
I see you got everything planned out, but you forgot just one thing. I've also got a doll chip.
All right, V, get out of there.
I'm sure the other outcome to this quest was allowing the top doll to take control, and the option I chose was the more thematically satisfying outcome. However, the logistics don't really do it for me because, well, I mean, these workers just staged a coup against one of the most powerful gangs in Night City. I find it thoroughly difficult to believe that the gang wouldn't just retaliate by sweeping through and eradicating this uprising with impunity. And that's exactly what happens, which I love. Because let's face it, there are too many moments in video game writing where you lash out against some all-powerful foe and wind up winning with no ramifications. So it's nice to see some realism play out even if we don't get to witness it firsthand. Instead, Judy invites V out to go diving. It's strange, but interesting enough to not ask too many questions. She explains that she's been working on a way to sync brain dance feeds so that 2 people can share an experience together, complete with the feelings that they have at any given moment. It's basically the mirrored counterpart to Panam's Tank Quest, except it's less about physical sensations and more about reliving memories and hearing inner thoughts. Diving to the bottom of this dam area has Judy revealing that this used to be the town that she grew up in before it was flooded for profit by some corporation or another. You get to tour through her town, reliving her memories and understanding how she came to be the way that she is in a way that no other love interest showcases. In this regard, Judy easily has the most potential of the group to be the most grounded and human companion. And thankfully, every attempt that a male V makes to hit on her gets shot down immediately. It doesn't feel like River's Quest where you get all of these mixed signals. Instead, V feels like the first person in a long time to pop into Judy's life and not make things worse for her, much like Evelyn and the other dolls at the club. She doesn't feel like she's trying to take V out for a romantic dive. It instead feels like she's trying to escape, and that this is the last stop at the bottom of the dam before she can actually do so. The title of the quest is Pyramid Song, a somber, longing piece by Radiohead about accepting death that lends an even deeper meaning to Judy's final moments in Night City. While an array of memories accompany these various underwater locations, it's the memories of Evelyn that affect Judy the most after you resurface. As Judy sits at the edge of the tub, she explains that the gang retaliated against their actions, killing one of her friends and wounding another. All she feels is guilt, causing her to go to sleep by herself on the couch as the memories play through her mind. Johnny berates her for expecting anything less than scorched earth after pulling what she pulled and suggests that you just take off and leave her to her fate. It's hard to blame the guy in the moment, once again becoming the voice of criticism to this entire foolish plan that we just went through with. In the morning, a calm acceptance has washed over Judy as she stares at the city from afar. She's fed up with living in a place that's never done anything but batter her, causing her to withdraw within to herself and treat every newcomer with suspicion. While V couldn't be what she needed to stick around in this reality, he at least stuck by her every step of the way as she naively tried to fix things with her optimistic plans. And now that she's lost everything and everyone close to her, Judy's ready to leave behind Night City at last. She gives V access to her apartment and tells him that she'll be leaving in a few days, and that's that. I know it might sound weird to some people who didn't see Judy in this light and instead just saw her as the resident sad girl, which is definitely fair. I would say that her quests have been fairly weak, but it's also very difficult to stack any of the other love interests' quests against River's specifically. However, I view Judy as the easiest to get attached to want to help. She's like the definition of I can fix her. Maybe I'm a sucker for tragedy, but none of these other potential companions have this much depth and realism to them in my opinion. River has a solid character arc and is the closest to Judy for sure. But man, Carrie and Pan Am have next to no depth by comparison. While it isn't easy to compare these four just due to being locked into one of them and not getting the full picture with the other three, I would still put Judy and River head and shoulders above the other two. They're all solidly written, but the latter two compelled me to want to help a lot more, which tells me that male V's love interests are relatively shallow and less inspired by comparison. Alright, let's wrap this thing up at last. The final main mission feeds into a finale quest that is dependent on which ending you choose to run with, which is why I'm gonna do all of them because this game is fantastic and I want to see what each of these outcomes entail. Let's start with what I did the first time I played this game. V heads to meet with Hanako, who insists that she can get V into Mikoshi if he agrees to attend a board meeting at Arasaka HQ and profess the truth behind the Emperor's death. Option 2 would be letting Johnny take the wheel and getting Rogue's help to storm Arasaka Tower once more, where the access point to Mikoshi lies waiting. There are a couple more choices here, but let's go with option 2. Now mind you, no matter which option you choose, V goes through the same process to get to that point, involving getting up to this rooftop where he has a deep and tough talk with Johnny about his options. At this point, Johnny is very direct with V and what may happen during what he chooses, and seems to genuinely want to separate from and overall help the Merc. This conversation is the culmination of all of the decisions that you've had with Silverhand, both big and small, which is why it always felt right for me to give Johnny that chance to prove himself here.
Take the wheel. Just, go easy on us, yeah?
Thanks, V. I'll get us through this. You'll see.
Meeting with Rogue has her being swayed by the siren call of Johnny Silverhand once again, something that she seemed oddly prepared for despite him being dead for 50 years. While she berates him for showing up like this again, she does put the plan into motion, which winds up being surprisingly direct.
So summing up, we fly to Arasaka Tower unnoticed and say hello with a welcome basket of missiles.
Exactly. Then we jump in, find the building's vertical axis, and work our way down.
To the Mikoshi access point. Yep.
What'd you think?
Plan's got more gaping holes than a kabuki dollhouse.
I do like that the game explains its shit thoroughly once and then just moves on. I've been playing the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake lately, and my god, it's nice to not have everything explained to me 100 times. Likewise, diving into the net to meet with Alt and get her on board has her cutting off Johnny over and over to basically move things along.
It's weird.
Having a bad dream.
You read my thoughts?
An oversimplification. You still deny what you are. A construct. A set of data.
Now I feel...
Naked. Time is short. Netwatch could detect our local net traffic.
While this does speed things up, it also serves to wholly sever any idea that Alt Cunningham is still alive as she was before, now an advanced AI construct that hardly resembles who the Netrunner was before she died.
Know what? Think you were right. Alt's gone. Oh, for Christ. Perfect. Go on. Fuck off.
The finale of this entire endeavor kicks off with Rogue shutting down the Afterlife bar for good, knowing that she's about to burn every bridge that she's ever built just to settle a score. And that's an important distinction to make here. Throughout the game, Rogue has seemed to be a slave to Johnny's impulses. She jumps when he wants her to, she takes jobs when he has something in mind. And it's raised a question throughout this game. Why? Why does she repeatedly stick her neck out for Johnny Silverhand? Is it love? Worship? A driving desire to impress him? And the answer is that she's just as fucked up as he is, and she wants to stick it to the mega corporations just as much as he does, maybe even more so. She knew how to play the game, how to bide her time, raise capital, get into a position where she could inflict the maximum amount of damage on Arasaka, even if it meant working for them at times, which is the guilt that caused her to reel back when she was on the date with Johnny. She's been planning this for decades, getting herself into careful positions at various tech companies, earning favors that she could call in whenever she felt like it. This entire plan wasn't something that happened because Johnny snapped his fingers. It happened because Rogue had been aiming for something like this to unfold for a very long time. As much as she likes to play the coy sidekick who can't believe that she's being dragged along, she's much closer to a protagonist in her own right. And seeing all of this unfold really lends a lot towards building her up as her own person rather than making her a convenient ally who happens to be in control at the right time. The ride over to the tower is fucking fantastic, and it's especially due to that tune that the audio team cooked up to perfectly encapsulate Johnny Silverhand's big moves. When you hear it again after having heard it during the first Arasaka bombing, it's positively euphoric and really enhances this entire spectacle as Arasaka takes notice and begins hammering the aircraft with missiles. The three people infiltrating the arbor area of the tower are Johnny, Rogue, and Rogue's right-hand man, Wayland. While speaking with Wayland has been a few and far between event, he's got a distinct charisma to his character that culminates in him asserting dominance over Arasaka's forces as we press further in. At this point, we might as well talk about the difficulty on normal. I'm level 46, maxed in 3 skill trees, don't even know what I would spend points on at this stage. My cyberware is all legendary tier 5 or 5+ shit. Everything is a cakewalk, so much so that I started to use Johnny's hand cannon for fun because the sheer prospect of contending with my own poor aim makes for a more intriguing stint of combat. I can't remember the last time that I seriously have had to use a heal in battle to survive it. To call normal easy is an understatement. I'm not mad at the developers for this though. Honestly, it truly feels like with the amount that V has accomplished, he should be this Night City legend that's simply built different. If you're looking for a challenge, it won't be found on normal, at least not at this point in the game. I think I died once at the start, but that was when I was still experimenting with what I could get away with as a melee-focused build. The finale has Alt taking control of Arasaka Tower, effectively eliminating enemies before we can even encounter them. It's a raw display of power, one that truly shows off what she's become. Of course, she eventually has to turn her gaze against Arasaka's Netrunner counterattack, which leaves us to deal with Atom Smasher as the final boss. And his appearance suits his reputation nicely as he grabs Rogue and sinks his fist through her chest before we can react. It's the perfect moment to kill off this woman who's been a part of Night City for half a century, who put everything on the line for this assault, the last living member of the old guard. I remember the Smasher fight being terrible when I first played just due to how the combat worked. Basically using a blunt melee weapon had this quirk to it where you could stun the enemy over and over again with charged heavy attacks. And I just kept him doubled over for the entire fight. Things have been much improved since then. Now mind you, it's still an easy battle, but it does feel much more dramatic and seems to have phases to it that I don't remember seeing. When it's done, you can choose to leave the cyborg alive or kill him on the spot. I chose the latter, heading down the hall afterwards to the core of Mikoshi. When Johnny finds the engram of V in cyberspace, the two unite in a heartfelt moment, assured of their victory at last. And that's when Alt swings by to break the news. V's body is now worthless to V, having been rewritten and tuned to accept Johnny and Johnny alone as the host. The final decision of the game involves Johnny keeping his word and surrendering V's body back to him, giving him a couple of months to live in it before he expires. Or he can do what V feared from the beginning and seize control of it, living on in a new vessel. Whichever engram stays behind will be drawn into Alt's maze of consciousness, joining her as a legion of unified AI. The first time I chose to let Johnny live on. This time I let V regain control of his body. And my god, I think this is one of the most somber endings to a game that I've experienced. V awakens in a magnificently opulent penthouse in the middle of Night City. His surroundings are pristine. Pan Am awaits him in the shower. His clothing consists of gold-plated high-end fashion. The assault on Arasaka has resulted in him being granted control of the afterlife, his wealth inflating to unimaginable heights as he became the Night City legend that he had always dreamed of becoming. He quite literally has achieved everything that he set out to achieve. But he's still dying. Pan Am knows it and insists that he leave with her to join the Nomads. V refuses, stating that he has one final job to pull off. It's a commentary on who V was and has become in order to survive in this ruthless city, one that imparts its message in a heavy-handed but still masterfully done way. In this reality, V is somebody who got by through the sheer willpower necessary to take back his own life and claw his way to the very top. And even when he did reach the summit, his drive to save his own life wins out as he somehow requires more. He flies in on the same type of aircraft that he began the game in, departing his private life of grandeur back into the grimy depths of the afterlife, beating at the heart of Night City like it was never shut down. His final job is a casino heist in space, which sounds stupid, but the Crystal Palace has been mentioned repeatedly in advertisements throughout the game, and in the old TTRPGs. It's this gigantic floating space station meant for the true elites of Earth to live on. Just visiting it for a 2-day vacation would cost more than what most of the population would make in their lifetimes several times over. The job that V is taking on is a suicide mission in every sense of the phrase, as even remotely getting caught will have him likely perishing with no way to escape. There's no indication as to why V is going through with this. It can't be for the money, so it has to be for some other chance to save himself somehow, or for the pure glory of being the one to pull off a stunt that nobody else ever has. You obviously don't get to play through this final mission, as the devs decided to leave things ambiguous. But this entire lead up to the final scene with V floating in space by himself over Earth, there's this dark cloud of despondency hanging over it. V knows that he's going to die here, chasing glory to the very end. At least, that's how I interpreted it. It just feels sad, you know? You spent this entire game being told that V is going to die. And in 90% of other games, that tends to be thwarted by some other miracle way out. In Cyberpunk, you do everything in your power to prevent this fate from befalling V, and it still isn't enough. Him making it to the top is a tease, a taste of what he could have had but ultimately experienced for only a fraction of his life. It's a great ending, one that concludes with some messages from various contacts that he made throughout the game, who update V on what they've been up to while occasionally asking when they would see him again. I don't know. This ending made me sad, but like a good sad, you know? I don't think I realized just how attached I was to V until I saw him talking to Johnny at the end. It feels silly to say it, but I guess I just wasn't compelled to view him as an actual character until I was out of this first-person view. I don't know if that's a me thing or a video game thing. Piloting V felt like I was generally playing as myself, making the decisions that I wanted to make and playing the way that I wanted to play, even when V would say something that I wouldn't have. But when I saw him in third person throughout these final scenes, it felt less like I was in control and more like I was watching the culmination of all of the actions and dialogue that V demonstrated throughout the game, a sensation that hit me like a ton of bricks all at once. It's strange, but I truly didn't realize how well written he was until these moments, and how fantastic the writers did at creating a character that you can simultaneously insert yourself in the shoes of and view from afar. When everything is done, the game sticks you back before the final mission, but with all of your new stats and pickups from it intact, the perfect vehicle to see more endings without feeling like you've lost progress. That said, there's one particular ending that doesn't abide by that rule if you manage to fuck up the prerequisites like I did. The secret ending involves choosing very specific dialogue in one of the earlier quests and then waiting around 5 minutes without choosing any dialogue option when you're on the rooftop with Johnny. A small part of me was a bit upset that there was such a rigid requirement for this ending, but I mean, it's literally the secret ending. In a world where there are no more secrets in games, where rumors are squashed within hours of a game releasing and guides are posted on the internet in the same day, attempting to have a secret ending is kind of fun. I respect it. The most interesting part about this setup to me is that the dialogue options that you have to choose during your one-on-one with Johnny are a lot more aggressive. Like I said, I rolled over when talking to Johnny before, giving him the buddy-buddy options at any given time. To unlock the secret ending though, you have to admonish the way that Johnny treated you at first, to prove that you won't be walked all over, that you aren't a sucker. It causes Johnny to respect V, to understand just how much he fucked up by being an asshole to somebody he now considers to be a great friend. And I love that that's the correct set of dialogue to get him to trust V enough with this suggestion.
Good news is you got this one chum who's already dead. And he'd be honored to join you on a wild suicide run. You, me, and Arasaka Tower. Kinda sounds like a Eurodyne lyric, I know, but trust me, we'll go fucking Nova.
Taking on Arasaka alone through the front door by yourself is everything that I hoped that it would be. Now mind you, I'm down 10 levels, multiple slots of equipment, and overall cyberware rarity. And I also decided to try to crank the difficulty to very hard. So yeah, I tried hard for a bit, got halfway through and went for normal. Mostly because every time you die you get this ending sequence where V dies and you have to go through the whole credits before you can try again. Normal at level 38-ish is actually a pretty good challenge for this ending, which I was surprised by. The music is my favorite track in the game throughout, and Johnny is creaming his jeans as we progress further and further in, amazed that V can handle something as outrageous as this. The Smasher fight also lasts more than 30 seconds, showing me moves that I've never seen the guy pull. The devs did a pretty damn good job with it when you aren't an overpowered killing machine. The ending stuff is more of the same, but Johnny's dialogue seems a lot more at peace with the idea that he'll be giving up V's body to join Alt, which makes it the perfect time to have V willingly give up his body for Johnny instead. As he walks towards the bridge to join Alt, Johnny gets in his face repeatedly, calling him a coward for giving up after everything that he's been through, before finally admitting that he's scared of what will happen to V. And with that, Johnny wakes up this time in a rundown Pacifica apartment. The aftermath is sad in a different way, as it's clear that Johnny truly did change from this entire experience. He's made friends with a kid who's in an abusive household, bonding over their shared love of rock music. He has the kid drive him to a guitar shop so that he can pick out a high-end guitar to give to the kid before heading to the cemetery. Throughout the ride, Johnny seems to be calm and at peace, taking in the sights from the city that he never fully appreciated before. When he gets to the plot that he bought for V, he relinquishes V's necklace, finally ready to move on with life.
Can't carry this around anymore, you know. Can't keep wallowing. Can't keep obsessing over what happened. Couldn't forget you anyway. I'm wearing your goddamn face. Thanks for... well, for everything.
It's another melancholy ending, one that results in Johnny hopping on a bus and leaving Night City behind forever. The credits' phone calls have most of the parties involved asking around for V and wondering why he isn't responding to them. Well, all except for Rogue, who knows what Johnny did.
You must have made a pretty big impression on V for getting him on board with this, so hats off. I'm just wondering how you feel about that, Johnny. Having another person give their life for you. Especially when you're probably just back to all-nighters and cheap tequila, laughing at how stupid he was. Or has your conscience finally learned its lesson? That is, if you've even got one. Good luck out there, Johnny. And don't ever come back to Night City.
It's an ending that has you realizing just how far Johnny Silverhand has come since his introduction, and how he now has to deal with the guilt of what he's wrought, taking the blame onto himself for once in his life. Honestly, it's just as good of an ending as the other one, which is exceedingly rare. Usually I prefer one particular ending over others at the conclusion of games, but I'm okay with either one of these being the true ending. Let's go down the corporate route and side with the enemy for once. It's interesting because I was certain that Takemura would turn out to be alive and aiding Hanako, but he actually died back in that attack on the apartment. And then I looked it up and it turns out that you can go back and save him. Whoops. Much like how I realized how attached I was to V, figuring out that Takemura was gone had me realizing that as much as I enjoyed him as a character, I never really got that attached to him. I mean, I would save him if I knew he could be, but I didn't think twice about his existence until now. The quest kicks off with Hanako sending Anders Hellman to pick V up and escort him to the estate on the north side where Yorinobu has forced her to remain under heavy surveillance.
Try to act natural. Or rather, just be still and calm, and this will all go smoothly.
Fucking hell!
Preem, Hellman. Now what was it you said about acting natural?
Oh, piss off!
I cannot stress how easy this game is at this level with this equipment. I know I said it before, but I just decided to use my fists for the vast majority of this mission after starting with the sniper rifle, which wound up looking like this.
Damn it!
With Hanako extracted, we head to Arasaka Tower while she clearly has some kind of ulterior motive in mind. We head deeper into the tower and Hanako reveals that a copy of the Emperor's consciousness was transferred onto an engram, allowing him to live on in a more stable way than Johnny currently is. We take this copy up to a meeting where the executives of the company currently debate and wow them by showing off a hologram of Tupac dancing on the table. I mean, come on.
Arasaka-sama, It's him!
The thing is, I sat here going, how the fuck would this ever convince a group of elite executives to kowtow to our demands? And the beauty of this inclusion is that this is exactly what Yorinobu Arasaka set out to cull from the company. When you fight your way through his elite guard and eventually smash her again, he kneels on the floor in traditional Japanese garb, defeated. He explains that his father ruled through fear and fear alone, and it wound up with certified buffoons at the helm across the globe. That Arasaka was powered by one man controlling a load of inadequate people, not the best of the best. He has a great point, but Yorinobu is no leader either, having learned from his father. His plan had failed in spectacular fashion, and as Hanako approaches to comfort him in an extremely strange but fitting way, V is dismissed to go with Hellman and get the chip ripped out of him once and for all. Encountering Johnny within the Soul Killer program has him immensely disappointed in the worst way. He isn't mad, he doesn't berate V in some childish way. You expect him to throw a punch to threaten him in some way that he just can't fulfill. You've seen how hot-blooded he's been this entire game, and now he's just frustrated that V betrayed what he used to stand for. Not what Johnny stood for, but what the mercenary who got shot in the head stood for. Johnny explains that he no longer cares about his fate and is more concerned about who V has become in this pursuit of life, almost going back to that opportunistic corporate rat who climbed the ladder at Arasaka at the start of the game. And with that, Johnny is gone, pulled out from V and shredded into scraps of random code. V wakes up in orbit on an Arasaka space station. And this is where about 35 minutes of grueling gameplay unfolds in the best way. You head back to your room and sleep. You wake up and a doctor strides in, rigidly commanding V to go through some tests. First, a 2x2 Rubik's Cube, then a test where V says the first word that comes to mind when the doctor says a word, then an exam to test empathy, and finally a physical exam. These tests repeat over and over, day after day. The longer that you play, the more you realize that something is wrong with V. It's this heavy combination of guilt, loss, and neuron damage that causes every test to go awry in some way. Throughout the days, a newscast plays before the doctor rolls in. Turns out that Hanako forced or convinced Yorinobu to relinquish his body to the Emperor's engram, causing him to become reborn in his son's body and sparking riots across the world. It is absolutely fucking crazy, a magnificent twist to all of this. Eventually, V seems to recover slowly, the colors beginning to correct from the blue that he saw in before, his physical health slowly bouncing back, his speech regaining confidence. But he's haunted by the nightmares of Johnny and Jackie, the terrors indistinguishable from the prison that he finds himself in.
Solve the cube.
And as V tests again and again, he finally snaps, causing the doctor to leave as he tears apart his room. The next morning, Anders walks in and explains the predicament that V has found himself in. It's a familiar one, to say the least.
The procedure was a success. We removed the biochip. But the damage it wrought proved enormous. At the genetic level, altered DNA. The kind you would find in those suffering from radiation sickness. And sadly, it's lethal.
And this is the fate of somebody who betrayed himself, who worked against his core values, the man who sold the world to buy back his life. He's now isolated in space, away from anybody who cares, the crushing guilt of betraying somebody who was a part of him weighing him down day after day. And despite everything that he did, he's still in the same position that he would have been in. Except at the very end, you can choose to head back to Earth and live out those months the best that you can, or you can cling to hope to the bitter end, choosing to become a part of Arasaka's soul collection in the hopes that one day they'll decide to put your mind back into a new body for some fucking reason. It's hard to convey just how terrible this ending is, and I don't mean that it's poorly written. I mean that it was written to be one of the most vile and painful pits of despair that a character could fall into. And it's pulled off to perfection. It's terrible in a good way, the perfect fate for a selfish and naive character whose thirst to live on must be quenched at any and all costs. This game absolutely nailed every single ending that it set out to achieve, making them all different in the best way possible. It is goddamn impressive and nothing short of a miracle in today's industry. We have 2 more endings to go, and I'll start with the quicker one. By far the worst ending is the one where you throw the pills away in favor of the gun. It's a brutal, difficult to stomach ending, one where Johnny doesn't even fight V on this decision. It's sad in the worst way, filled with terrible, heart-wrenching emotion that comes from a deep place of pain, one that affects every one of your friends in a borderline incomprehensible way.
Is it time?
You know, it really is beautiful.
Been nice working with you, V.
Yeah. With you too, Johnny.
I'm gonna miss you, kid.
May you rest in peace, V. When I said I was thinking about you, I meant a lot. About everything you did. And I guess I get it. Why you wanted to leave this place once and for all. But still, V. Did you even think about, what happens when... Shit, I can't do this. What were you thinking, huh? Or did you think about nothing at all? Is that it? And after everything I did for you, everything! And what's the first thing you go to, huh?
The only thing you proved is that you don't give a fuck about your friends. Well, guess it wasn't that far-fetched. At least, that's how half the people in Night City end up anyway. Especially the good ones.
I don't think you knew just how many friends you really had.
It isn't a bad ending in terms of the messaging. It actually enhances this idea of just how difficult all of this was on V in this reality, taking him away from the role of a fighter who would do anything to live to somebody who has nothing left in the tank. I hate the way that this ending made me feel, but I respect the hell out of the writers for having the guts to include something so real, which has been a trend throughout Cyberpunk as a whole. Our final ending sequence involves calling in the Nomads for some backup with this mission. At this point, the Aldecaldo clan has an interesting relationship to V in their slice of the story. He rescued their leader, united them, and smoothed out the bad blood, made them stronger, and he's long been accepted as one of them should he need their support for anything. Johnny recognizes these bonds, particularly to Panam, and advises heavily against involving them for the fear of getting them killed and ruining a good thing. It's something that he knows about from personal experience and regrets involving others in his own escapades back in the day. Still, Panam and her clan are immediately on board, no questions asked, putting their money where their mouth is and beginning to plan out a way to dig under Arasaka Tower via hijacking a tunnel boring machine. The only thing left to do now is to get Alt on board by hopping into our 20th ice bath. One of the best things that each of these ending paths does is put actual work into making them feel different. It feels like such a distant priority for a lot of developers with multiple endings. Usually you get a difference at the start and then it eventually merges into the exact same set of objectives and conversations before tapering off right at the end with some obligatory line or two that's different, leaving the player's imagination to do the heavy lifting. Yes, of course, there are still some similarities in each of these endings because your end goal is always the same. But for the most part, these guys really worked their asses off to create genuinely different paths for V to tread down. And it was the conversation with Alt that led me to this conclusion. Obviously, talking with all of the Nomads is different from the other endings, but you expect that. Alt's conversation here varies from every other time that we've talked to her because this is the first time that we've met with her alone. And she doesn't simply go, "Oh, no Johnny? Well, whatever, take this shard and slot it into Makoshi." Instead, she muses on how Johnny must be feeling, how he's taken a back seat because he has no choice, how he's pretending to be supportive of V's plan because he has no choice. She continues to press this idea into the player's mind that Johnny may still be actually trying to pull one over on V, viewing his past behavior as an absolute fact that cannot be changed. And despite her wizened AI form being a far cry from who Alt used to be, a fragment of her old personality shows through when she smugly remarks on getting back at Johnny before continuing to play the role of the uncaring and curious AI who views the marriage of Johnny and V's personalities as a science experiment to study. It's a very interesting stint of dialogue that you can only get by blocking Johnny out and calling on Alt for help, which only happens in this Nomad ending to my knowledge. After working out a deal with her, V heads back down to the rest of the camp before formally being accepted as one of the Aldecaldo clan.
You're one of us now, V. You're an Aldecaldo, damn it.
It's everything that you would want in a connection to these people, even if it is pretty predictable. But once again, the writers take things a step further. I know this is going to sound like I'm gushing about nothing, but you have to understand just how rare this caliber of writing is. I hate to keep doing the whole, in other games thing, but it's just the truth, and I don't have the faculties to express my thoughts in any other way. I mean, if you take most other video games and have an ending where you side with some benevolent clan and get accepted into their ranks, it usually just ends with this whole happy family moment before the final quest begins, regardless of any infighting or issues that arose before. That's just not enough for CDPR, who take the time to have this entire conversation with Mitch. Mitch was the one that we rescued before, when the other one died. I should have said his name before all of this, but I didn't know he'd become so persistent in the story. Anyways, Mitch goes on and on about how Saul views this entire operation as his chance to re-establish his power over the clan. Basically, he's going to use this endeavor to save V's life as a platform to seize Militech firepower and show the clan that he's still got that dog in him. Panam is less worried about gaining power for the clan, only worried about saving V's life and making her appear like a weaker co-leader in this instance. It's an entire set of politics that's worming its way through the undercurrents of a mission that would ordinarily only be about saving V. It's just not something that you see out of most games, and I love that the writers thought to include it. Heading over to Panam has the same types of thoughts on her mind, wondering if what she's prompting the Aldecaldos to go through is a mistake. She's concerned about Saul agreeing with her for once, feeling like his usual questioning of her leadership skills being absent is causing the mantle of responsibility to fall entirely on her. Regardless, the clan sets out in the morning, creating a mission where you pilot the tank that you hijacked earlier and wreak havoc on the Militech security outside of the drilling site. The Aldecaldos do their thing, with some people dying in the process as you might expect. It's a fine mission type, though I will say that the more that people die in panic here, the more that I realize I don't really care as much as the devs were hoping that I would in this moment. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still good. I just think I'd feel more concerned for these people had there been more missions for them. It is what it is, and the scope of this game is already gigantic, so it's hard to ask much more of it. I just thought I'd be honest instead of sweeping over that feeling. Drilling into Arasaka's basement brings us back to familiar territory, the game finally syncing its level with some of the earlier endings as we fight through to the center and upload alt into these systems. Panam texts me saying that she wants to come visit my apartment, which is nice of her to offer in the middle of a suicide mission. Outside missions continue to operate during finale quests, which makes for some strange interactions. It's not that big of a deal, it's just funny that that was one of the ones that happened to trigger here. So here's the thing, we know that Smasher's gonna come barreling down that hallway. The question is, who's going to die here? Panam dying would be fucking tragic, and that alone filled me with dread as we marched towards that final door. I guess that's a perk to playing through every one of these other endings. Instead, Saul is the one who gets on the receiving end of Smasher's wrath, and holy fuck, it's so much better than Rogue's death because, I mean, come on, the guy stomps through his head. Good God, what a fucking death. Going through the soul separation process is the same as ever, though Johnny does complement your plan with Panam working out at the very least. When V wakes back up, he's on the outskirts of Night City in Panam's truck. He says goodbye to the city as his girlfriend claims that the Aldecaldos have some great connections in Arizona that might be able to help V to live longer than his 6-month diagnosis. It's the first and only bit of good news that we get in these epilogues, the only sliver of hope stemming from getting the fuck out of Night City once and for all. The ending has the clan moving out, evading Arasaka forces as Panam and V make a jump through an old smuggling tunnel before putting the tank on autopilot and letting it do the rest of the work. Like I said, it's the closest thing to a happy ending that we get, and that honestly surprised me. There are no true happy endings in Night City. The developers set out with that in mind from the start, but it's still crazy to see them remain faithful to it. It's actually something that I had an issue with in the ending that I got in Baldur's Gate 3 when I played through it. Minor spoilers for those who haven't gotten to it and care, skip ahead like 15 seconds if you can. But basically, in my ending, everything turned out completely fine. Like, it was the happiest ending to a game with dramatic stakes and terrible occurrences. It felt like the writers went, and then everything was solved, the end. Cyberpunk's endings by comparison are fucking draining. Just special delivery drones packed with misery and melancholic gloom. But they aren't just sad to be sad. They fulfill a promise that was established from the get-go, this idea that Night City takes everything from everyone. There are so many games where a specific area of the world is talked up as being this terrible place where everyone suffers, and Night City is a part of that trope. But it's one of the few that lives up to that talk. The story dangles this idea that you can fix everything, that somehow V and Johnny can live out the rest of their natural lives, and some miracle cure can be found to this very specific situation that they've found themselves in. But it's an exercise in futility from the outset, and the pain that V goes through to get to the point where a miracle can even be performed is a monumental uphill climb. Cyberpunk 2077 is a masterpiece, there's just no getting around that. It's something that a lot of people have said for a very long time, but the launch being marred with difficulties made it hard to break through that first impression. Which honestly, especially with how the devs promised a lot of stuff that they did not get into the game. I cannot blame people for being disgruntled with that. But for me, somebody who went into this with no expectations, There have been very few games where nearly every part of the writing has been something that I have fully agreed with the inclusion of, where I understood why the developers decided to write things the way that they did at every turn, where the characters were written to be realistic first and foremost. I think it's silly to stack great games against each other and assign arbitrary numbers and rankings to them when they get as good as the likes of CDPR games. But I truly believe that Cyberpunk 2077 is the developer's magnum opus, ever so slightly surpassing The Witcher 3. Again, I'm not saying that this makes The Witcher 3 bad. I love that game with all of my heart. But it just feels like everything went so right with Cyberpunk that I can't help but to gush at nearly every turn. It almost feels like this video could have been 5 minutes long and had me going, yeah, this is good shit. But hopefully I explained my thoughts and opinions a little more succinctly than that in a way that made this all worth it. I would summarize all of my main points and thoughts one more time like I was taught to in high school, but I don't know. I just think I've said everything that I need to say about this game, barring the DLC. If anything, this has given me immense hope for future CDPR projects, including The Witcher 4, which I was wary of after its announcement. Please don't make me regret saying that. Thanks for watching. I know that it takes me longer to make videos like these than most would like, but I'm doing my best to continue cranking out content. I'm not sure what I'll hit next, but it's definitely going to be a worse game than this. Until then though, I have merch over at my merch shop. Nothing Cyberpunk, but I think I got some Bethesda, BioWare, and Star Wars related shit that's, adequate, probably. I also have a Twitch where I stream nearly every Tuesday and Friday. I have a Twitter where I tweet out my new videos. I have a Discord where people chat in the meantime, and I have a Patreon. And that's it. Have a good one.